Bear with me. Let's see if it works. And see if we don't need to take a mulligan on this video. Two reasons. One, my memory is not so great, and I'm going to be remembering some numbers. But two, uh, I'm going to see if I can get the tech to work because I don't have a 10-year-old around to help me with the tech. So if you've been introduced to my channel recently, my name is Dion. I reached financial freedom and retired in 2022. I did it by investing in real estate. I had 16 rentals when I retired. I added a duplex since then. And in this video, I want to break down how much a rental paid me the first year I owned it versus the third year I owned it. And so this is my most recent purchase, almost. It was the one I purchased just before I retired. Because in 2023, I purchased the duplex that I'm house hacking now, which was a BRRRR, my first and last BRRRR. What I want to do in this is see if it'll even work. I'm going to open a whiteboard and you guys in the chat, let me know. I don't have an existing one. Is this it? Okay. How much did a rental pay me in year one? So you should be able to see this. It's I understand some people watch my videos in Futureland through the podcast version where you're not watching. So I'm going to say some of the numbers a few times. Hopefully repeating myself doesn't bother you too much because the numbers in this aren't what I'm focusing on. So you will be able to attack me that I might say it's 12.6, but really it was 12.68, which would be rounded up. Attack me with the math all you want. I want people to understand the concept of how a rental pays us. Many people think a rental says, okay, I make $1,000 a month from rent, so I'm making $1,000 a month. How much are you spending? What's your future expenses going to be, right? So I want to look back. Normally, when we look at rentals, we're looking at, should I buy it, should I not buy it? And we're trying to do a forward projection of what we think we'll do in the first year that we own it. And we can be fairly close with what's called a cash on cash return. What I'm looking at now is called an internal rate of return, which is much better at looking at the past than projecting the future. Because in the future, things like appreciation, what interest rates are going to do, it's really hard to guess. So you're just guesstimating and you're hoping, and you don't want to get caught living on hopium. So I'm just going to break down this rental. This was a duplex. I purchased it, so we'll put in here, if I can figure out how this thing works. 300, what was the purchase price? 397,500. This was on the MLS, was listed at 400,000. I offered 400,000, went under contract at 400,000 using the inspection report, negotiated it down $2,500. Some people would say, well, that's terrible. How do you know? Purchase price could have been $300,000 below what it was worth. It was worth $397,500 because in real estate, a property is worth what somebody's willing to pay. There was another one for sale across the street like it that I tried to talk my friend into buying, and some other friends talked him out of it, and he lost all the money that I've made since I've owned this property. Sorry, John. But yes, yeah, sure, you could have listened. I don't know if you should have, but you could have listened to me. Now, when people say things like, I purchased a rental property, there are other people who say, well, you're driving up the price of real estate because you're taking all the homes off the market. No, I purchased a duplex. So not that many people are going to be buying. Not many homeowners are going to buy a duplex. And then people say, well, what could you have done with $397,500? You could have helped a lot of people. And yes, I'm going to. Who makes money off my rentals? Property taxes, right? So first responders, schools, our roads, all that stuff, that money that comes from property taxes. I own more rentals. So I'm paying tens of thousands of dollars a year. My tenants are paying those taxes. There's utilities each one of my rentals. There is handyman and contractors that have done work at each one of my rentals. So it's like the Corvette story. The person saying, well, what could you have done with the money except for buying the Corvette for yourself? Well, how many people could you have fed with the money? How many people did you feed buying the Corvette, right? The window maker, the fabricators, the salespeople, the designers, everybody that went into having that Corvette be on the road, purchasing it made that happen. Purchasing this rental had the added benefit of other people making money more than just myself, and tenants who don't want to own buying a place or having a place to rent. And the tenants that were in this particular rental, I was able to talk into buying a house. So they got out and got on the property ladder about halfway through this process. So now, let's go through the expenses here. So the purchase price was that. My mortgage, now again, this is going to cover some concepts of how a rental pays us. The math ain't going to be perfect. You'll be all right. The mortgage was, this is not one I got to refinance. So, and I'm terrible at typing. So that's my monthly expense for principal, interest, taxes, insurance. When I first took it over, the rents were, I think they were $1,100 each side. Yeah. And then a couple of months in, month and a half in or so, I did the binder. The tenants, the rents changed to $1,460. I think this is one of the binder methods that I have talked about in many videos. So first year rents went to $1,460. Area average, I think, was $1,550, $1,600. So they were still below area average, but I didn't kick them out of their house and I didn't have to do a rehab. So that was what I made the first year. Now, the side that purchased a house and moved out, the rent is at $1,950. And the tenant that is still there was binder strategied again this year and went to $1,600 or $1,650. I'll have to remember that before I get to that point on this. Yeah. Where do they go to? Good question. I'll have to look that up maybe. So it's $1,460. So year one, we'll do rents at $1,460. That is $2,920. So there's $2,920 a month in rent coming in on this duplex with a $1,350 mortgage going out. What is, I need a calculator. And again, math's going to be way wrong here. I think I did the math wrong already. So 1,460 times 2 times 12. Am I doing this completely wrong? I think I am. 35,000. 40? Yeah, that's wrong. Okay. Rents are $1,950. Tenants purchased a house. Year one moved out. It's $2,920. $2,920 minus $1,350. This is where a lot of people make their mistake. So I have $2,920 coming in, $1,350 going out. That gives us $1,570. There are a lot of people who look at a rental and they think, I have $1,570 a month in profit coming in. You think nothing's ever going to break? You think you're not going to go through an eviction in the future? You think you're not going to have a vacancy where tenants move out? And when the tenants moved out and purchased the house, the place was vacant from the 1st to the 6th. So it's 6 days without rent. It was almost bankrupt you. That's how you're running your numbers. So what we also do as a property owner is we go, I'm going to set aside, and for me, I chose 15% for repairs, vacancy. It's a catch-all phrase that means evictions, repairs, maintenance, planned for things, not planned for things, things that pop up. And so 15% for me comes up to, what's it, $438 per month. That's getting set aside. It's my money. It goes into an account that's technically mine, but if I count that as profit, I won't have money because I'll spend profit. So that goes into an account every month. That leaves me with my actual profit that first year after the binder strategy of $1,132 a month coming in from a duplex that is profit. Now that is a little more accurate than what people do. Remember, you are going to have those future expenses. And I do know people who say, well, I have so much in reserves and I have such a large portfolio, I no longer do that. Well, I want each asset to be able to stand on its own. If I didn't have the reserves and I didn't have a bigger portfolio to handle my mistakes, I want the cash flow from this property to be self-sustaining. But what does this 1132 tell me? Does that tell me it was a good purchase or not? Because what if I got it for free with a VA loan? Yeah, that'd be great profit. What if I put $10 billion as a down payment? Would $1,132 a month be a good return? No. So our cash flow doesn't tell us anything. It does tell us if it's positive or negative, if we made an alligator or not. And I'm going to look at the chat here in a minute, and I'm going to hear things like, sound's not working. I don't like your math, all these things that are wrong, but I want to get through this and then come back. This will be here in Futureland. You come back and pick at me and tell me how I got everything wrong here. So when I purchased it for the 97.5, here's how I figure out if this was a good purchase or not. I want to look at what is called the cost to acquire. Because what tells us if it's a good cash on cash return is when we take this annual profit. So we're going to take this 1132 times 12 gets us 13,584. Math can always be wrong. So this is annual profit. And I'm going to put AP because I'll probably spell annual wrong and everybody will pick on me. So that's what I made in a year. But that 13,584 divided by the cost to acquire. Now, the cost to acquire was a down payment, closing costs, money for immediate repairs. And I kept track at the time. And what that ended up being was $109,000. Okay. So down payment was 25%. When then closing costs, which was appraisal, inspection, title insurance, any of that, those fees that came in. And then there was very minor repairs. I am the lazy investor. I like to buy straight from the MLS, which is either already occupied or rent ready. Very little work to do to this property. These deals are out there. They are not easy to find. There was 2 available when I purchased this one. So anybody saying, well, it's impossible to do this. My friend missed the opportunity to buy an exactly identical property to this across the street for exactly the same amount of money. So the 109,000 is the cost to acquire. Now, if you divide 13,584 by 109, you guys can do the math on this. You will get what is called your yield or your cash on cash return on investment. And for this one, drum roll would be 12.4%. That's my cash on cash return. Now, that doesn't even tell me if this was a good or a bad deal, right? Millennial Mike invests in a market where 20 to 25% returns in Gary, Indiana is a best use of capital. Lumberjack Landlord invests in the Siberia or Maine or wherever he's at, the Boston area, for frozen tundra for 5 months out of the year, where he gets 20+% return. In my area, a 10% was what I was shooting for. 10% would be a good deal. So I looked at my friend and said, this is a deal you should go for because this beats the area average. Your area, if you're in San Diego, might be a 1 to 3%. If you can find a 5, you're knocking it out of the park. So don't compare another market, another asset class to what you're investing in. So a 12% cash on cash return is my yield. New Hampshire. Thank you. Thank you for that. Wealth building journey. I appreciate it. So now we know that in my market, based on what I was hunting for, this hit almost all of my things. There's side-by-side duplex garages in the middle, washer dryer hookups in each one. So math was just step 1. It hit all my metrics. It's in a really tiny town. less than 500 population, but it's close to a military base, where on the other side of the base is a large city. So the more rural wanting people will live in my duplex, and I have plenty of demand. When the tenants moved out, like I said, it took 6 days and was hard to choose the tenant to replace them based on the demand for the place. So now this is year one. Now it paid me $13,584. It actually paid me significantly more than that, right? And this is why I'm not being exact. There was a month where I didn't have the mortgage and I collected the rents through title. There was a month where the rents were 1,100, not 1,460. So there's a bit of an adjustment there. There was all of this money that was set aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. And it was $438 a month. I think in the first year of ownership, I might have spent $400 on the place, period. But I was setting aside $438 a month because eventually I did have a tenant turnover. I did have some expenses. I had 6 days without rent, right? That money is set aside, even though it's not mine, it is there. It's physically making me more, but we're going conservatively. What did it make me? $13,584 that first year. Now let's look at year three. Let's look at compared to year three, because this is what Patrick Bet-David said the other day. You know, stocks appreciate on average around 10%. Real estate appreciates on average around 5%. So stocks are better, but I haven't even talked about appreciation yet. I made $13,585 without appreciation, like, because rentals cash flow. And the cool thing, because this is levered depreciation, right? I took out a mortgage. I was able to depreciate the higher value above what I put down. I haven't paid a penny in rental income tax, probably won't for a decade. So the 13,584 is after expenses, after taxes, also paid property rental tax, real estate taxes. So year three, because rent control was threatened in Washington state, the tenant on one side was binder strategied again, and the rent went to, so I don't get it wrong, $1,650. Tenant asked for rents to go to $1,650. They run it, the unit that was rented out, and why I'm an idiot for allowing a tenant to only ask me to have the rent go to $1,650 is the other side rented out for $1,950. I'm losing $300 a month just by being a nice guy. I'm a jerk because the rent went up from $1,100 in a few years to $1,650, right? I'm a jerk. The tenant set the rents. They knew their budget. They knew what their comparables were. They set the rents. They're happy. I don't think she plans on going anywhere. Tenant moves out because they buy a house, which I encouraged. I'm like, here's an agent. You're welcome. Here's a lender. I will help you get on the property ladder. Because yes, I don't want to kick you out of your house, but if I can get you out to buy a house and you can do that and get on, improve your life going forward, look what happens to my rents. So am I altruistic that I help them get a house? No, I'm getting better rents. But I also had to take care of a tenant turnover, which I'm lazy, didn't want to do. So I don't want to displace people from their house. This tenant that's there could stay there forever. We'll every now and then have a conversation about rents whenever there's a black swan event. When there isn't, we'll do a small, like 5% every other year increase. But when there are black swan events, like the 2020 stuff, then the rent control threat, we will have the binder strategy and get rents where they are. So now, $1,650 and $1,950 is the rents. Rents are $3,600 per month. I have to tell you, year three compared to year one doesn't suck. So $3,600 a month coming in. I probably should have done this first. Your mortgage by year three is now $1,410. Prices went up. Taxes, insurance, they adjust. It's going to cost you more in the future. So while rents did go up significantly more than prices did, costs did, but costs did go up. If rent control goes through, the tenant's rent will go up every single year instead of every other year, and only 5% every other year if there aren't black swan events, because we have the ability to adjust for black swan events. We don't have to raise the rent. But if rent control goes in, it'll have to go up every year. So now, 3,600 minus 1,410 equals math, 2190. So $2,190 in profit each month from a purchase made in, not 10 decades ago, not 5 decades ago, not even 10 years ago. My almost most recent purchase. $2,190 a month coming in profit. Now my expenses are at 15%. I don't go the first year that I bought this, I set aside $438 a month. And in 2050, I'll be setting aside $438 a month because that won't even cover someone's lunch to come and look at an electric problem, right? By then. So the 15% grows with your rents because expenses are going to be more in the future. You want to set aside more money for those future expenses. That comes up to $540 per month going into an account that, let me see, this year, what have I spent at that place? $160 had a light replaced on the driveway. Oh, and a new toilet seal. So $280, including it was a weekend trip for the handyman. So I've spent less than $400 this year, and so I'm setting aside $540. So I will eventually have something like an eviction, tenant turnover, replace the roof. I'll do all those things. This is where the money comes from, leaving me with the profit for this year at 1650. No, am I doing this math wrong here? Yeah. 1650 per month. Now, all the principal, interest, taxes, insurance are paid. Money is set aside for expenses. I'm still going to have those. I'm making 1650. That's mine. And because of levered depreciation, this is after taxes. So now what did it pay me in year 3? I don't know if I did the math on that one. I think I will actually just have to go to the calculator. 1650 times 12. 1980. $19,800. So year 1, what did it pay me? 13,580. Next year, 1980, 800, right? So how much did it pay me year 1? 13,000 was a 12% cash on cash return. Here's where the magic of real estate happens. What's my cash on cash return for year 3? Because this is the beauty of this. In 2050, the cash on cash return for this property will probably be something like 70 or 80%. Because the cost to acquire doesn't change. The day I purchased it, and 10 years from now, the amount that I spent to acquire the property was $109,000. That doesn't change. But how much I'm making each year does. So now if I take the 1980 divided by 109,000, my cash on cash return for year 3 is 18. Did I do this? 0.1%. That's an 18.1% cash on cash return, just comparing it to how much it costs to get it. So annual profit divided by cost to acquire. You can run this for every year that you own a property to see what's happening with your yield. If it's getting smaller, your deal's getting worse, right? Your expenses might be outpacing your rent increases. You might be in a place with rent control, and that can happen pretty easily. So how much did it pay me though? Like how much does this property pay me? Because that's just my cash on cash return. And this is not me picking on stocks versus real estate. I definitely wouldn't do that now at this point in time. Kind of like when you see those memes that say, Florida, it's so amazing. It's December, it's Christmas, and we're walking down here in the 70-degree beaches with this beautiful weather, right? You see all these memes for social media on how amazing Florida is year round. But you don't see those memes during a hurricane, during the evacuation. So stocks are the Florida of investing. Today's Dionism. I will not pick on stocks when they do this because the largest, in a year-long span, the largest market-wide drop for stocks in our recorded history in the United States is 8.9% in a one-year period. Yes, it can go down more years than that, but we've had 30% drops in stocks in one day. So can real estate go down? Yes, it's a little more sticky, takes a little bit more longer to do. But here's what I'm making with. This is cash flow at an 18.1% return on cash flow. I purchased it, again, purchase price up at the top here, $397,500. According to the powers that be, it's now worth, this is the conservative estimate, $516,000. This is the appreciation that Patrick Bet-David was comparing stocks and real estate to. In most years, yeah, it's 5%. But when you have a pandemic, an eviction moratorium, a prolonged issue of 2020 with forbearance and all of that, we have record appreciation. And it actually went up above this a little bit. It's down from its peak, right? But it hasn't come down to where it was. So now, if we take this away from the price, $397,500, it's gained $121,400 in value. Now, if you remember here, kind of at the beginning, I said, there are people who think I have $2,920 in rent coming in, so you make that in profit. No, you have expenses. You have future expenses, right? So it's gained $121,400. If there are people who will say my net worth has increased by $121,400, I'm going to be a little more confusing, and that's why I kind of wanted to make this video. Hopefully I'm not too confusing, but I wanted you to understand the concepts of how this has paid me, because I didn't make $121,400. I made 13 first year, 19 the third year, some teen the second year, right? So there's $30,000 to $45,000 in profit in 3 years in cash flow. But when you have this $516,000 new value, that's not my money. I can't do 100% cash out refinance, right? I guess I could move in and use a VA loan. There's a creative way to do that. But if I want that money, I'm going to do a HELOC, which will only go up to a certain percentage, or a cash out refinance, which will only go up to a certain percentage. So I could sell it, right? Well, if I sell it, I'm going to pay taxes. I'm going to have an agent fee, right? So let's do the net worth the way I like to do it. Net worth is what the kindergarten version that frustrates me is people say net worth is assets minus liabilities. That's not true at all. My asset's worth $516,000. And the liability is what's left on the mortgage, right? No. If I go to sell it, it's going to put me in, I've owned it longer than a year. So it's going to be long-term capital gains tax. And if you make somewhere between, I'm going to get the numbers right because it's like 40 to 500, but that's not the exact numbers either. It's like, I don't think I took a note of it. Dang it. There's a breakdown of capital gains tax. And I didn't take a note. I should probably just look it up really quick. So yeah, it's 47,000 to 518,000. You pay 15%. So I'm in the 15% tax bracket. If I go to sell it, I don't pay 15% on $516,000. That would be a lot. I didn't even make that much, right? It's 15% on the gain. So it has gained $121,000. But I'm going to also have what's called the cost of selling. This is missed almost every time somebody runs their net worth. If I go to sell a property or all of my properties and just walk away with cash, which I'm actually thinking I might do someday, you have agent fees, you have possible repairs and maintenance, you have whatever expenses you're going to have with the cost of actually selling it is going to be around 8%. You might average it up or down depending on your market. The more expensive the market, the smaller the percentage. The cheaper the market, the bigger that percentage might be. It's on a sliding scale. I'm in a fairly high cost of living area, Not in the $2 million a house, but it's, it's $500,000 houses. Today's mystery mug. And so 8% means I'm going to be paying, what is, I don't know if I can do the math on this. 8% of 121. It's just under 10 grand. So I'm going to pay like 10 grand in the cost of selling. And then I'm going to have taxes of, so 111,000 times 15%. No, that's wrong. 111,000 times. I have $16,650 in taxes. After we pay the cost of selling and after we pay the taxes, this is what it's actually paying us. So 121 minus 10,000 minus 16,650 gives me, I'm going to make about $94,000. Round numbers, it's like 94,350. So I make 100 grand. If I sell it, I have 100 into it, right? So I'd get my money back. I've got that appreciation. But now we've also had principal pay down for 3 years. This is also something that people forget. When I purchased it, my mortgage was basically $100,000 less than this. But every month, in the beginning, tenants were paying off around $300 a month. It goes up a couple dollars a month because of the amortization schedule of your principal going up and your interest going down. So it's a little bit more, but 300 times 12 times 3, it's around $10,000. So I've even made more than that. So 94,000 if I sell, 10,000 in principal pay down, 40-ish thousand in cash flow. When we talk about real estate and we talk about getting into things for financial freedom, and people talk about, man, why would I buy a rental? I'm only going to make, $400 or $500 a door. I mean, that's you have to deal with the tenant for $400 or $500. That's not worth it. Well, you talk to a tenant once or twice a year, at most, in my case. And yeah, it was a lot of work to save the 100, right? I didn't start with $100,000 down payment on anything. I started with $15,000, 5% down, $300 duplex, right? You're saving the down payment for your first house hack. Once you have the house hack and a couple of rentals, the down payments get easier to do. So don't compare my year, 10 to your year 1. My first purchases weren't like this at all, but this is how one is paying me now. So let me know if this whiteboard was just confusing. And if you're listening to it in a podcast, I apologize. And hopefully I got the numbers out there. But the property pays me with cash flow, appreciation, principal pay down, the tax benefits of levered depreciation. Now I've got the option of 1031 if I sell it and buying another property, so I wouldn't even have to pay the taxes. You have the stepped up basis, so my heirs might not even have to pay the taxes, depending on how people vote in the future. Real estate pays us in so many different ways. It's really hard to look at a rental and go, that has a good yield, I'm going to buy it. But is this a rental in a high demand area? Does the physical aspects of the property help me limit tenant turnover? I've had one since I've owned it, and that was because I helped them buy a house. It has washer dryer hookups in each unit. It has side-by-side layout, so there's a garage in the middle, no shared living walls. What else? It's pet friendly, open area. It's close to several economic drivers, even though it's in a low population area. So I list off my things like a base, a port, a college, a hospital, Boeing, Amazon, or a large population. It has 3 or 4 of those. I'm never going to have all probably in my area. So what determines if we buy the property is math is just one step. When I saw that this was going to beat the 10% yield, I ran them numbers loosely, and I had no idea that this was a 12.4% return until I went to kind of get my notes ready for this video because I wanted to have some clue of what I was talking about. That first year, I had no idea. The second year, I had no idea. I didn't care. It doesn't matter. I only know this because I'm making a video. What mattered is it beat the area average enough for me to go, okay, I don't ever have to think about math again on this property. I'm not going to look at a spreadsheet. I'm not going to run numbers differently. I'm going to do this down payment. This is my interest rate. This math is a good enough return with these other aspects of this property for me to pursue it. But a lot of new investors, we get hung up on math and we just focus math. We have a 17-page spreadsheet that goes across and has all these different charts with all these different properties. And none of that's going to pay you rent. Buying a property that checks off enough boxes for it to be worth your time to pursue is how you reach financial freedom, or how you buy stocks in your well-diversified index portfolio, or your dividend portfolio, or you study crypto and know enough to say anything that's good about it, or you start and grow a business. You focus on your asset class and know it well enough to know that when I knew that my return was going to be close or beat the 10% I was looking for to beat the area average in my market, I never thought about math again for the property. Thought about it for this video. And I probably got about 10 things wrong, but you got the concept. What it made year one, even though costs went up, made more in year three. I didn't get super nuanced with that month where I don't have a mortgage. I know that my expenses have never been close to what I'm setting aside every month, but I know that I'm going to have a roof or a foundation or a water heater issue in the future. And then I talked about appreciation. It's not just that you own the new value of it. What you have is there's going to be a cost to sell. There's going to be tax obligations or considerations, right? I could move into the property, live there for 2 years. This is below the $250,000 threshold because I'm smart. I mean, single, that I can have capital gains on and not pay taxes on, right? So I could do this to avoid the taxes completely legally. I didn't even talk about principal pay down in the cash flow numbers. But now, 40 minutes into this live where this was supposed to take 10 minutes, kidding, I knew this would take a while. The rest of this live is going to be dedicated to answering the questions of the people that are here today in present land. I hope, don't get caught living on opium, that this information helps you. We're done sharing that for now. Let's go through the questions and say howdy to everybody. Wealth building journey. Howdy. I see you got the math right off the bat there at the beginning. I appreciate that. Maybe Oculus, but Rob got the boot also. It looks like chat got reset. Ooh, that's not good. Did it do it on the computer too? So I might. Nope, they're still here on the computer. Okay, good. Jason, old guy, ninja, howdy. Levita, good to see you. Cody, awesome video topic. I measured this recently. My first rental should pass $1 million in rents in the next 2 years. Congratulations, that's awesome. I think one of your first rentals was like a sixplex or something because you had 30 the first time that I interviewed you. Levita, I am here for the bad dating advice and to guess this evening's mystery mug. Did you get the mystery mug? Bad dating advice. There's so much of that as an option. Howdy, Ace, Laura, Wayne, Claude, good to see you all here. Freedom Works, howdy. Basilio, Ace is up. Late start wealth, good evening. Numbers plus tech equal Dion? No, probably not very good. Howdy, everybody. Dennis, Jason, the Yoder, REI, Jared, good to see everybody here. So yes, that's a good yield, wealth building journey, 12.6 to 12.7 in my market. There are markets where that's not a good yield and you're buying a bad deal. That's why a lot of times people say, well, I want to buy out of state. And if you call somebody in another state and you say, I have California or Washington, D.C. money, and I want to invest there, the agent's going to send you deals that sound great, that every local investor passed on for a reason. Do you have, REI Jared, do you have any insider information on BP's recent move with David Green? Had to try. No, I appreciate the question. I'm a David Green fan. I've said that in many videos, even when I'm on like the one rental at a time and we're debating something, because BiggerPockets for a while seemed to kind of watch us and then do like the REI Avengers came out right after ours did. And I literally did a recent video like 3 weeks ago. Then they did one 2 weeks ago, same title, same everything. So I think maybe it's because they're in my lineup of content that I watch that sometimes the minds are flowing in the same direction. But BiggerPockets was started in a basement, right? And it was writing vlogs came out later. It was blogs for a while, and then it kind of grew, and then it was purchased by someone else, and then they got their boot camps, and so while I like BiggerPockets, my favorite content that they have is when they talk to people starting out, right? Because don't take this wrong if you're super successful, but let's say you have 260 rentals and you make $1 million a year in profit, and you watch a video and now you make $1.1 million a year in video in profit. You made $100,000 more because of something you saw in a video. Do I care about that person? I mean, it's nice. But if you made $0 in profit and you watch some videos and you get in that first 3 to 5 years where now you're making $100,000 a year, you get the same increase as the person going from 1 million to 1.1, but you got from 0 to $10,000 a year in profit. That's freaking amazing. That's what I want to be involved with. That's why. So when BiggerPockets reaches out, I'm happy to be the teaching assistant for the BiggerPockets real estate rookie boot camps. Like, I'm not in the syndications. I'm not in the apartments. I'm not in the you own 1% of 1,000 units. I'm in the how do you save a down payment? How do you pick a market? How do you pick the strategy that matches your resources and your goals and your abilities? Right? That's the people I want to talk to. And BiggerPockets does a good job of that, right? The Real Estate Rookie podcast is really tailored to that. BiggerPockets Money has an episode that they're doing kind of a chain on financial freedom. My episode's coming out with Mindy tomorrow morning. So I'm excited about that. I'm still kind of involved with them. I don't work for BiggerPockets, like being a teaching assistant. I'm like what's called an adjunct faculty, so I'm not an employee. So I don't drink the Kool-Aid and I don't say buy into the syndications and all that kind of stuff. And that's probably going to get me kicked out of their rookie boot camps. The thing that keeps me in there, if you took a rookie boot camp and you're here because of that and you followed me since then, sending an email to somebody like Blake and going, hey, I really enjoyed the teaching assistant that you guys had. He had a lot of information that helped me. That's how I keep getting called back. Not because my opinions line up with theirs. And that's why I don't think you would ever see me. I've guest co-hosted the Money Show. Don't know that you'd ever see me as a host there because I'm not the sales pitching. I have a course. How many times have I mentioned that this year? I think I mentioned when there's a course video and I say, sure, see you in the course video, which we did the whole month of July. But we'll see. Dividend Dave, I was here last week. Were you? Or yeah, Jared. Not only do the municipalities and units, but my whole team gets paid. Cleaning lady, handyman, electrician, plumber, AC guy is in there now. Yep. 43 watching, only 17 likes. Angels need their wings. Exactly. They do. Thank you, Chester, for the help there with the math. Paula, howdy. Oculus. David Green wants so much money and the pockets weren't big enough. I think they kind of went a different direction. I don't know. I think I'm as in the dark as everybody that's just like, oh, that was kind of out of nowhere. Where'd they go? Right? Like there was David kind of did a couple of host things and then they brought in Washington and others, and then they added Rob. Like there was like a cycle to it, and then poof, gone. I don't know. I can honestly tell you, I have heard of no arguments. Like I haven't heard of anybody going, we didn't get along, so whatever. Oh yeah, Jared, good answer. Yeah, creative differences. Exactly. Oculus. STR boom is fading, thus no Rob. Right? But when Rob first came out, it wasn't so much STR as it was tiny home, if I remember right. Like he was the tiny home Yucca Valley guy, which I lived in Yucca Valley, and I was stationed at 29 Palms, which is the devil's armpit. It's like somebody's wagon broke down and he said, let's build something here. I think Dion should take a spot on the BP show. I would love it if they let me talk to the new investor. You're starting out, you have 0 to 5, somewhere in there. The concepts, like if you could go through the beginning half hour of this video and pick apart my math 1,000 different ways. But what you can't pick apart is that I had cash flow, that I had appreciation, I had principal pay down. There is a cost to selling. That short clip of time right there is a way of thinking that if you think that way, you think everyone does. But there are people who don't. And until they hear it in a broken down, slow method of, did you know it costs money to sell your house? Right? You think agents do all this work for free and the photographer's going to work for free and you're going to fix everything that the buyer wants done for free? It might come out of the purchase price. You might do a concession so you don't feel it coming out of your pocket, but it comes out of that purchase price. Yeah. Sam, howdy. Do you still recommend buying rentals in your personal name and not an LLC? I delineate that too. There are times, and I'm interviewing with Coach Carson. I'm a Chad Carson fan tomorrow morning, right after the Three Amigos recording. And it literally is to cover the LLC topic. So in-depth video coming out on Coach's channel soon. When it makes sense to have an LLC, I recommend having one. Do you have partners? Are you using lending that requires an LLC for the lending to happen? Sure, there are times it makes sense, but not for asset protection because there is none, not for tax benefits because there is none, not for anonymity because in most places it's not really hard to break that. And you are probably going to interact with the contractor's handyman or at least property manager that interacts with your tenants. And if you're trying to be that unknown, what are you hiding? Because I got some things to hide. I can literally say this sentence and be true. I have never been arrested in the United States. I've been detained in the United States a few times, but I've never been actually arrested in the United States. It's a clear statement at the end there. Oculus. I was thinking Zuber should buy it and expand one rental at a time. Maybe Zuber should just grow bigger than them. I think he has the potential to do that. REI Jared, Sam, he will most likely answer yes unless you have a partner. There you go. Thank you for the math again. I appreciate it. Chester, you're keeping up. So you've got these concepts. That's how you can buy that place you just closed on. REI Jared, Oculus, too expensive in my guess. Maybe Zuber should raise capital from all of us, make us partners and buy it. There you go. The syndication, anti-syndication YouTube channel. All Nighter Hider, howdy. Hit the like button. We can start now. Exactly. You would have loved it today, All Nighter. I should go there and grab one. In my house, you walk down to the water. This wasn't today if you're a park ranger in my area. And you take a rake and a bucket and you fill the bucket with crabs. And you have crab for dinner. You just walk down there. This is why I have a video coming out Thursday on one of the hardest decisions you're going to make in retirement that you don't know you need to make. Spoiler alert, it's where you're going to live. Watch the 10-minute video though, because I'll make some other points too. Wealth building journey, cost to acquire, down payment, closing costs, and potential make-ready costs. Yes, thank you. Exactly. All right, Jared, to make it easier for Dion to read questions in the comments, we should start a Discord to do all the side. No, I love it when you guys chat here. I think because you guys help each other just as much as I do. So I think Discord's not bad. I'm in like 7 World of Warcraft Discords already. So having another one is not going to be an issue. Although you Discord chat is not as clean as YouTube chat, just so you're aware. Headphones, earbuds, don't let your kids hear. Nope, appreciate it. Fellas and Sheilas, all right, Jared, are you from the land down under? Math done for you, 13,399, 12.46, awesome. It is Siberia. All Nighter Hider. So San Diego is about 2 to 3% negative average yield. Last I checked, that sounds accurate to what I've heard there. But somebody is investing there successfully, and how are they doing? Invest in the Midwest. I'm telling you, it's coming. Awesome. Lavita, Jared, doesn't the algorithm send this out to more people if the chat is active? It absolutely does. That's another reason why I appreciate each one of the messages you guys have in the chat. What would be great and really help, I mean, first, like people like the Wealth Building Journey taking back a message and making me lose sleep forever and ever, wondering what was said twice in one thing. That's awesome. But if you could go question and then a question. So if I do get kind of jammed on time and I want to make sure I get to all the questions, I can find it quicker because I want to read the comments. I'm here with you guys too. This is how I spend my Tuesdays. So let me know in the comments. Is there anybody here who's like on Tuesdays at 4, I hang out with Dion. Because on Tuesdays at 4, I hang out with you guys every week. How many videos? It was on the thumbnail. 130 weeks in a row. Even when I was on a cruise, I still found a way to find Tuesdays in Portugal, or sometimes the Wi-Fi was ugh, yeah, not a gamer's paradise. Yes, all night header. I agree. Levita, maybe not sure if it helps, then great. We are doing good. I appreciate it. Yep. Starting with question is what George Cameron asked us to do. It worked well for him, and those were the question. There you go. You already put that in there. Appreciate it. There we go. CREs for the win and not commercial real estate. Exactly. Levita. Wealth building journey is the top on this numbers thing. He is. I saw the wealth building journey spreadsheet on a Wednesday all once. Wow, yes, I'm surprised that his computer could handle it. Like, and it wasn't even a gaming computer. Like, if you want to see high-end road, I've got the gaming computer here. I've actually shown the screens. I can show one of the screens. I've got to show the setup for when all three are up. Angels need both wings to fly, not half. 24 likes out of 57 people. I appreciate it. I love that you guys have a sense of humor because sometimes I pick on people, but I'm like the South Park of YouTube. I pick on everybody. And you have to have a sense of humor. Jason, I liked before the YouTube video started, bunch of slackers in here. Nice. Financial firefighter. Aloha. Howdy. Mark in the house. Good talking about him. Exactly. What's going on? What's up? There we go. This is an important exercise to determine annual property performance with properties are worth keeping and which are worth 1031ing. Yes, you should, like your relationships, do an occasional review of the positive or negative impact it has to your life, right? So I talked math. I went over how much did it pay me. I went over appreciation. I went over principal pay down. But I also mentioned I've had one tenant turnover at a duplex in 3 years because it has elements in the property that help limit tenant turnover. I don't get a lot of calls from the tenants. I didn't have to train the tenants. It's not an area where I get noise complaints. It's not an area where I've got police response all the time. The positive things it brings in my life isn't just the money. It's the peace of mind that comes from having a low volume management property. I think with that property, I would have spent more time with a property manager managing it than if I did it myself. And thanks to the straight line depreciation, cost basis of the Dion gets to write off 14,555, round it to the nearest dollar in profit. Business expenses work, yes. Business expenses are a huge one. You get to write off a lot when you have that. You have your home office for all your rentals. You got your cell phone. What percent of your cell phone is related to real estate? Mine's about 85%. Your internet at your house, your every meal, depending on who's in office, your meals can be write-offs. Like, have you ever had a meal where you were dumb enough not to mention your portfolio when asked questions of whoever you were eating with? Levita, what do you think about having a cost segregation study completed on purchase of a property? Are you a real estate professional where you have such a high income that a cost segregation study that offsets the tax obligation of your W-2 income would justify the expense of the cost seg, even if it was just a penny? So Matt, the lumberjack landlord, was a higher income earner, right? Made hundreds of thousands of dollars from his W-2. Then he did cost segregation studies to get a six-figure check from taxes because his wife, Ashley, had quit her job and become a real estate professional managing the properties, which is when you have 100 plus units, that's a lot of work, right? So they qualified for that to benefit. I had the last couple of years of work, I had a pretty decent W-2 income, but a cost seg wouldn't have impacted that because I'm not a real estate pro. Right? You got to hit a couple of things. One, you got to be you have to be working in real estate more than you do your W-2. You have to work in real estate more than 751 hours a year. And so first, I lose on both of those, right? I never 2 hours a month. to work on my real estate. So 24 hours a year is not 751. So it would only count against rental income. And because I use leverage, I've never paid a penny in rental income tax. So all I would be doing is increasing the carry forward loss that I could do for next year. So no, I haven't done a cost segregation study. And here's the negative that I don't like about it. Round, fuzzy math. This isn't going to be perfect. This is somebody who has a couple of TBIs going, here's how math works, folks. You have 100% of your depreciation that you can take over 27 and a half years. You do a cost segregation study, you get to take about 25% of that depreciation that would have been 5, 10, or 15 years used up, do it all in year one. Sounds great. You get 25% of your depreciation written off all at once. Who wouldn't want to do that? The person who wants to have 100% spread out over 27 and a half years doesn't do that. The person who's okay having only 75% remaining of your depreciation to spread out over 27 and a half years would do that. Would not do that? I have lost track. That's how my brain works. One, it wouldn't have benefited against my W-2. And two, I really like the full depreciation schedule lasting the 27 and a half years. So that was what I think. That's how you worded your question. So I have thought about it. I've considered it and I dismissed it. Like the LLC, brilliant when you need it. The cost segregation studies benefited Matt, the lumberjack landlord, hugely. He would have been dumb not to do it. And it's really hard to call Matt dumb because he's one of the few people who I think, so when I play chess, I go to level 15 and that's my goal. If I can beat the computer in 1.5 minutes, I win. If it takes longer than 1.5 minutes, I lost. Matt would stomp me into the dirt. Jason, how do you figure that, Chester? I'm not good at mathing well. Yeah, math is confusing, and that's why I wanted to use the whiteboard here. Yeah, Levita, remember to subtract about 20% from the purchase price for the land. Can't depreciate the land, right? You depreciate the improvements to the land. Exactly. Rich, howdy, you made it. And then my chat moved, which is great because it means you guys are putting in questions and comments. Oh, Kyrie, I don't do anything else on Tuesdays except wait for you. Well, I should start having them sooner so you can get off work sooner. It's a great reason to. What was for lunch today, Frank? Thank God it's Tuesday. I love it, Michelle. Where was my chat? There's a lot of chats. This is great. I love it. Also, there's no course and no members live tonight, so we don't have to stop at 6. Depends on how we're doing here. Where do we find your podcast? So are you talking to me or to somebody else in the chat? If it was somebody else, I hope you find it. If it was for me, it's on YouTube. There's a podcast version. And so I put this into their groups of videos. There's another term for it. And my brain kicked in. That's why I can't date anybody. I'm like, I know your name. We've been living together 3 years. I know your name. There's a feature on YouTube, and I set up that group of the Dion Talk After Hours as a podcast. So there are people who log into YouTube and only listen to podcasts, and so they're not watching. Lavita, I learned this year that depreciation recapture is a flat 25%, and there is another Medicare tax of almost 4%, and then the capital gains tax on the actual gain. There you go. Cost of selling. 39 years for commercial billing. That's true. Depreciation does last longer. Okay, there we go. Oculus, Lavita, everyone always forgets this depreciation recapture. I don't know about Medicare tax. Thanks for that. Yep. That's true. Depreciation recapture is tricky if you're doing a net worth. If you sold everything and walked away, right, you're going to have depreciation recapture. But if you have inheritance currently, laws can change. The stepped up basis resets the depreciation, so your heirs aren't stuck with that problem. PE turned RE. Howdy. If you house hacked and the cash flow was too low, how would you pivot? Well, when I first house hacked, I was paying to live there. So the cash flow was negative. because I was also paying to live there. Once I moved out, it cash flowed. I would continue to house hack because you are reducing your living expenses, and you might not be reducing your living expenses to what they were. Like if you were living with your parents for free and you house hack and now you're paying $500 a month, you are no longer living under your parents' roof. You are no longer being a burden to your parents, and you're not having to live by their rules, which is what you should do if you're living in their house. They could still tell you what to do, even if you're 40 or 46, Daryl. But I would consider house hacking is very important for a few reasons. Not just reducing or eliminating, but you also have the lower down payment, the better interest rate, right? You have the other benefits to the house hacking thing. The house hack that you're in, the current triplex, you've considered adding a room and taking on a roommate, right? What are you willing to do? Or is it you're in the first year of that second house hack and you need to compare year 1 to year 3. In year 3, you're not going to live there. You're going to have potential for a refinance between now and then, maybe rate and term, not cash out. I don't suggest cash out. And you're going to have a possibility for rent increases, tenant turnover for rent increases. You might actually add that bedroom to the studio place or the second bedroom to the one bedroom. You have all these opportunities to increase your income by year 3. That's what we're looking at. Remember, and I think I said this in a post earlier. Think in decades, not weekends. A house hack that's not making a lot of money now, yeah, by this weekend, it's not really going to impact you. But in a decade, right? There's that litmus test that we do for most decisions, the tens. This is how I taught my kids to handle pretty much every decision. How are you going to feel in 10 minutes, 10 weeks, 10 months, 10 years? When you look at a situation, that's how much stress you let it impact you. If you're losing a loved one, it is going to impact you in 10 years. You let that stress happen. If in 10 years you're not even going to remember this event, don't lose sleep over it. It's a good question. How would I pivot from house hacking? Well, you could pivot to different forms. You could do the thing where you add the roommates. I was considering, if I didn't find a property by the end of 2023, I was going to look at Gary, Indiana, and jump on Millennial Mike's coattails and invest out of state at an existing market where I knew a vetted person had already got their systems in place. So I would have pivoted to that. Dan Valentino, howdy. Dan, how do you calculate pure cash flow and what is your target per door? It's a great question because it explains a mindset shift that I might be able to help you with. Don't know if I'm right or wrong. I look at it a little differently, and I would hope that you would at least understand the way you're looking at it and the way I look at it, and then choose the one that makes more sense to you. If you go up to most people and you say, how much money do you need to retire? Try this with random friends, not YouTube friends that watch all of the same content, right? Because they should understand the difference. The person who's never thought about retiring, who's put no effort into at least learning what they think they should do, is going to name a number. It's possible they go, it's not possible anymore. You can't do it, right? So they're just a Debbie Downer, negative Nancy, whatever you want to say. Why are all the bad things girl names? I don't know. Ask the Hurricanes. So they say that all the time, but then Ian's a boy's name, right? Because Dion is a girl's name. I know that. I've been told that my whole life. So, or I've been shocked that I'm white. So something there too. If they've thought about retirement a little bit and they think it's possible, they're going to name a number of like 5 million, 10 million, 1 million, whatever that number is. Maybe they get into the 4% rule and they think it's a number. But really, what does it take to retire? It's a monthly amount of cash flow that you don't have to sell your life for 1 hour at a time that continues to come in. That is more than your living expenses, right? So the thought out version of that tells you where on the scale of investing they're at. But Dan, when somebody says, what is your target per door? Per door doesn't tell us anything. At the beginning half hour of this video, I talked about, this is how much I make per month. Doesn't tell me anything. I was making, I have a note here. At the beginning, it was, where was it? $1,132 a month in profit. Right? That was after principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and setting aside 15%, which was $438 for future expenses. Right? So that's how I calculate cash flow. So it's all the money coming in minus the expenses, and expenses include future expenses. right? That's where that 15% comes from. So I was making $1,138 a month. That's 500 and something dollars per door, which tells me nothing. Because if I bought it with a VA loan, zero down, that's an infinite return. That's a good return. If I took Berkshire Hathaway's $10 billion account and purchased a duplex that makes 1,100 and what was it, $32 a month, do you think they'd fire me or put me in jail because it's such a bad return? So what I look for is called a cash on cash return on investment. I do set a minimum. I don't want to make less than $100 a door. So I do have a minimum per door because I don't think it's worth the risk and the hassle of managing a tenant for such a small amount. But I'm in a high cost of living area, so it's not possible to do that and still be a good deal. But I look at annual profit. So it's that 1132, which what I was making, times 12 gave me 13,584. So I made $13,000 a year that first year. But my cost to acquire, which was down payment, closing costs, immediate repairs, all of that together was $109,000. So the 13,000 annual profit divided by the cost to acquire, the 109, gave me a yield, a return of 12.4%. But that yield doesn't tell me if it's good or bad. You have to know your area average. Millennial Mike invests where 20 to 25% yields are normal. Lumberjack Landlord invests where 20+% returns are normal. Now he's a master of his craft and he's doing some rehabs and burrs in there, but so he knows what he's doing. The average person might not get that there. In my market, from the MLS, rent ready or already occupied, little work to do. 7 to 8% is kind of normal. So I was looking for 10s. When I found this one, it was a 12. I pounced on it. I did full list price offer, high. What did I do? I think I did $15,000 earnest money. I think I did 10 days inspection. I might have done 5. There was a period of time where I was trying to be more attractive with my offer, doing a shorter inspection period to get that offer in. Right. So I negotiated them down a little bit once we were under contract, but I made a full list price offer on that place because it was such a good deal. So how do I know if it's per door? It's per yield, and I want my yield to beat the area average. And if you're like all-nighter hider and you're in a -2 to 3 is normal, and finding a zero return property for me is not a good deal, I'd start looking at a distance or maybe consider house hacking, because often the financial aspect isn't the only benefit to house hacking, the cash flow. So Dan, I hope that helped. So it's not a per door amount. It's yield. Doesn't hurt to have a minimum per door. But per door, like there's people say, well, I want $100 per door. Great. Did you invest $1 million or $50? Because that $100 per door is a very different return depending on how much it costs you to get it. So for me, it was learning area average. And I take that right from one rental at a time. That's not a me thing. That's a Michael Zuber thing right out of his first book. Study the market for 60 to 90 days. 80% of the deals are probably going to lose money, 20% that would make money. What's their average return? Beat that. And then Matt, in his genius, points out that's not how you guarantee to get a good deal, but it is how you protect yourself from getting a bad deal. Michelle, you missed the Futureland. You missed the part, but you'll be there in Futureland. Yes. And you might have to watch it because I did a whiteboard thing with a whole bunch of numbers. Wealth building journey to Dion Talk. Did you include a monthly CapEx, capital expenditures amount for long-lived durable goods? Like that's the 15%. I've never spent 15% on repairs, maintenance, or vacancy, but I probably will spend the 15% over years for CapEx. That is all clumped together for me, 15%. The lower cost of living area, the cheaper the property, the bigger that percent will be. Right? So you're investing out of state in a lower cost of living market. You might set aside, like Millennial Mike does, 20 or 25%, because, well, a roof cost me $7,000. A roof costs him $7,000. It might cost $7,500 because labor's a little more here, but the materials that you're shipping from somewhere in the country anyway, it's going to cost the same. So the cheaper the property, the bigger the percentage you set aside. Oculus question. Looking at rental with tenants in place, my favorite type. Existing lease has language about the property manager dropping payment in property manager's Dropbox. Under no circumstances should the tenant contact the owner if I buy the property and inherit the lease. How do I navigate if I intend to self-manage? So it's a landlord introduction letter on this is how rent payments are collected. While there might be language in there describing how payment is made, you are now the property manager and you can dictate those terms. Be as flexible as possible. There are three things I'd like to do when I collect rents. The first one, see if I can get this because I have a video. Three things I do when I collect rents. Number one, make it easy on the tenant. You don't want to have tenant turnover. You don't want to have frustrated tenants. Happy tenants don't trash your place. Happy tenants don't leave. And the binder strategy goes a lot better when you have happy tenants. Binder strategy often makes your tenants happy. Like Michelle, a couple of weeks ago, we did a video on raising rents where me and Michelle made a binder. She used it and there was a $300 increase and she has happy tenants. If she had raised the rent $100, tenants might have called her a jerk. They asked for the 300. They're happy. That's how that works. So landlord introduction letter, it's industry standard to include here's how paying rent goes going forward. I tend to not start with that. I tend to bury it in there, like separate it out so it's kind of easy to find. But don't start with, I'm the new owner, here's how you pay rent. I'm the new owner, here's how you contact me, right? This is my email, this is my phone number. I would like to set up a time to meet in person. You know, I'm going to be self-managing. We met during the inspection. We met during the appraisal, whatever. You can put in your personal details there like that. And then in the middle, it's rents will, going forward, rents will be collected. And I put in, you know, electronic funds transfer, and I use Venmo, Cash App, Apple Pay, whatever. Find out what the tenant likes. Use their format whenever possible. Some tenants still like to write checks because they don't have the interwebs and they have a flip phone. You make it as easy on the tenant as possible. The second thing is I want to leave a paper trail. So checks is a paper trail, Venmo, Apple Cash, Cash App, those are all paper trails. I have a tenant who pays in cash. Rumpled up $20 bills covered in glitter. I don't know where he gets them from. But send an email when you receive payment, because emails are admissible in court, as this is your receipt. I have received this amount of funds. That's a good question. And it's very normal. I've purchased properties that were ran by a PM before. I never even really cared about their leases other than this is the rent amount. And this is when the lease expires because you are bound by the existing lease. It's good to check the language like that in case you have some form of resistance. But the less agreeable tenants are, the more likely they are to not renew. TQ. Howdy. Agree on not getting hung up on spreadsheet cash flow. I'm considering buying 1.5 hours away in Pacific Northwest because Seattle is too expensive. That's where I'm at. And still debating if the drive is worth it, manageable for the long run. I started with an hour, right? To self-manage, especially if you're working. While I was working, I stayed within an hour. As after I retired, I said hour and a half. That's pretty good. But you also have north of Seattle, east of Seattle, places that I don't because I was south by Tacoma. So I was doing Pierce and Thurston County. I think remote work has made rents drive up. So if you take that Seattle or Dallas or LA or anywhere where there's a large city near you, remote workers I've pushed out another 45 minutes, hour and a half, because they only have to go to the office once or twice a week, right? Not the fully work from remote that can geo arbitrage and move to Thailand and be the richest person on the island. Thailand's not an island, but it has islands. I'm not talking about them. The people who still have to go to the office once or twice a week, they've moved out, pushed up rents. So, right. So I looked at Pierce and Mason counties. No, Mason and Kitsap counties. Found several deals I started making offers on because the new rents, the old prices, because prices haven't pushed up yet because those remote workers don't want to buy. Because what if they're like Michelle and their boss calls them back to the office? Not everybody wants to have properties. So we got higher rents, not higher properties, that hour out from Seattle, LA. Like LA, go out towards Roseman. Don't tell my brother I made competition for him. He owns in Roseman. Get out of LA, get into Kern County, get up there by Bakersfield, Taft. I don't know all the other places, but it's very similar in most places. Remote work has been a game changer. People in 2028 will look back at 2024, and I am not kidding. I have said this in shorter videos to make sure that people can go back and look it up. People will say 2024 was the golden age of buying real estate. You can do 5% down on a fourplex right now. You couldn't do that a year ago. It was November 18th last year that came in. So a year ago, because we're not coming up on it, I won't be able to stat soon. You couldn't do that. you'd have to go FHA, which is crap. FHA is not for first-time home buyers. It's for people with bad credit, bad debt to income, and mortgage insurance never goes away. And some sellers don't want to accept FHA because they think there's more hoops to jump through. Darius, are you listening? So you have rents pushed up from remote work, but prices not. The ability to house hack with 5% down and up to 4 units. It is a hard time to buy. It is hard to find cash flow. House hacking might be a consideration, but looking for those places where rents have changed, but prices haven't, it's not going to happen again. This is a window of opportunity. Philip, this was great. It shows me also the profit benefit of not using property management. What are your thoughts on using Hemlane for out-of-state rentals? If I was going to start investing out of state, I would probably have a property manager. The reason I can use Hemlane and not use property management is because I'm here and I have my systems in place. At any point in time, there's somewhere between 5 and I want to say 15, but it's probably 5 and a dozen handymen that I can call at 10 o'clock at night that have done several jobs for me, that know that I pay early, that I tip, that I don't argue on price. I might shop prices, but I don't argue once we've agreed. Even when they try to renegotiate a price in front of Millennial Mike. Poor guy. I have happy handymen that I can call. I have other investors, right? To be the person who has a list of people that you can call for help, you need to be the type of person that people can call for help. If Curtis calls me and he says, hey, I've got a question. How do I do this? Or, hey, can you go sign a lease because I'm traveling with my, whatever you're coaching currently on some sports ball event, I'd go sign a lease for you. To be the person who will help people, who will go to Josh and Mary's house and look at their stuff and see if there's some way I could do it or help or introduce you to a horrible handyman who screws you over in the end and don't use him again. Or Michelle can come and answer questions or help make the binder. Be the person that when somebody reaches out for help, you do them a favor by doing them a favor to build that list. So now I know I can move to Thailand. I can use Hemlane because I can, if I had to, I can step up to their process if I needed to. But I also have a list of handymen, a list of other investors to build the systems. What you don't have when you invest in a new market at a distance is that network, and that's where the property manager comes in. Yes, property managers tend to make more on rentals than the owners of the property do. So you have to be okay with that. And it fits. Like Millennial Mike uses it at a distance, and he's doing just fine. Richie, primetime Dion. Yes, exactly. That might be why they're shocked that I'm white. They were very disappointed at my police department when I showed up because they had actually hung a little thing on my box. Every officer had a box, and mine said token because they thought they finally got one. They have a sense of humor. It's good. I found out that it wouldn't have been there first. Alantino, Dion, what was the point of Section 8 as an owner? Here in LA, vouchers are in abundance since property owners are not signing up. You have to know your local market, right? Los Angeles had the longest lasting eviction moratorium. You have the really strict rent control laws. I don't know if the county is more strict than the state. Like in the state, if it's an LLC, it's rent controlled. If it's in your personal name, it's not. So I invested in originally 2 counties. I'm in 3 now, but I invested in 2 counties. Why is it? There's an ad popping up. How do I stop that? Okay. I hate the ads. How do we stop them? So I will not, and not to name anybody by name, but my mom always said, if you don't have anything nice to say, speak clearly. The housing authority of Pierce County, Washington sucks. And I will not have a Section 8 tenant in Pierce County. I have several in Thurston County. The housing authority in Thurston County is great. So if LA County Housing Authority, which I have no experience with, is good or negative, that might be impacting landlords. For me, it's a diversification strategy. I don't want more than a third of my tenants from any one source. Like I don't want all military, so I don't buy all around a base. I don't want all Section 8. I don't want all civilian. So I have about a third of each. It's not a perfect balance. I kind of balance it around in there. And yes, it would be illegal discrimination if you ran an advertisement that said no military allowed. In some areas, you're not allowed to say no Section 8. But you can control where you advertise. Right? If I have a unit coming out and I want to have a Section 8 tenant replace a Section 8 tenant, or I want to turn a tenant into a unit into Section 8, I take the listing and I send it to the housing authority and I say, hey, can you share this with the counselors that are there? Let all of their clients know this place comes available on Tuesday. If I want a military person and I call my base and I list with the people on the base that handle housing. And what you do for your base, your installation closest to where you live, is you contact your base and you look around, you Google MWR, Morale, Welfare, Recreation. Not every base has a housing authority, has a rental management system. There's no name you can look up for housing for the base, but they all have an MWR. Ask them who handles housing on that installation, and then you have the contact info of who you share your link with if you want a military person. So what's the point of Section 8 as an owner? Steady income, diversification. I screen exactly Section 8 as any other. I have the same credit score requirement. I don't check income because I don't check income on non-Section 8. That might change if Trump goes with the remove taxes on tips, because then people will claim them. Because if you go off income, you lose bartenders, waiters, cosmetologists, people who might make great tenants but don't claim all of their income. Freedom Works. Great show. Thank you. I much appreciate that. So hopefully, Valentino, that helped with the Section 8 thing. I know Millennial Mike is doing a lot of it in Gary, Indiana. And sometimes it depends on what is the fair market rent for your market, right? Joe Asamoah and does Section 8 in Washington, D.C., where they pay $5,000 plus a month because it's based on the fair market rents for your market. My market got a massive increase, and I actually considered renting to more than a third to Section 8 because it was $2,200 a month to $3,000 a month. That doesn't suck. What sucks, if you say the words liberal or socialist in a video and in any way it's considered as negative, they shadow ban your channel. So this is not a negative claim. This is an obvious statement. A social program that is willing to pay $3,000 a month for my rental now sets the rents for non-Section 8 program people to at least $3,000 a month. Why would a landlord rent to a civilian or a military person for less than what the government would pay? So when there's a massive increase in Section 8, the increase to your rents don't happen in January, February, March, because most leases, because landlords do the opposite of me, they have their leases end in the summer. So that increase to Section 8 doesn't start happening until now, the summer months. So this is when you're going to see rents push up for non-Section 8 tenants, because again, why would you renew with a tenant when you get $800 more from Section 8? I'm going to fair market rents, look up your area, and you can see your county, sometimes your zip code, and what the new rents are for this year. Sometimes it's lower than the average. Sometimes it's higher. So that's the benefit is knowing that you don't have to go with just one, you can do the other. Only 34 likes. I don't think I'm likable. That's okay. I like me. I think I'm adorable. Yes, that's a Dean Winchester quote. That's a Dean Winchester tattoo. Nerd. I was pointing at me, not you. Michelle, so what countries have you been arrested in? That's a great question. And I hear my mom calling me. Yes. Tuesday at 4, I hang out with you on This Is True. Awesome. I hang out with all of us. That's why the chat where we chat to each other is important, and I don't discourage it. I appreciate every comment, even if it's to each other. Michelle, on Tuesdays at 4 is on my calendar. Unless I have to work, I am there perfectly. And yeah, me too. Unless I have to work. As a retired person who's never going to work again, I hope to see us here every week. Tuesday, except when I was on vacation last month. Fair enough. TQ. I think I said TG last time. Do you still consider 10% cash on cash the area average for your local market now? No. It may have been when you bought the first property, but I'm hard pressed to find cash flow neutral stuff in Pacific Northwest these days. No. So 10% in those areas that pushed out, yes. 10% in Pierce and Thurston, I was finding more 5s and 6s, so I was going to start looking for 8s. Beat the area average. Just because I got a 12 one year doesn't mean that I wouldn't take an 8 2 years later. I should do the math on this one to figure out what my cash on cash return is. Because I bought it cash. This is the weirdest thing. I grew up poor, and people say, "Oh, I grew up poor." Yeah, no, I grew up poor. Like, this is how it works in California. I was so poor, we couldn't afford food stamps. In the dinosaur days, when I was a kid, to get food stamps in California, You gave the state $1 and they gave you $2 in food stamps. And for my family, it was cheaper to raise the animals uh, because we would move into houses, fix the doors and windows, and wait for the owners to show up and find out that we were there and ask us who the heck we were. And then we would move to the next place. I remember a place in Haskell Canyon, which is in Saugus, LA County. Owner said, I like that somebody's here. How about you just pay $50 a month when rent was around $1,200 a month for that type of place in that area? And my dad said, nope, we don't pay rent. And we moved. To go to the person who says, I've retired, I have $500,000 in the bank. I think I'll go buy a house all cash and do my first burr. Self-fund it myself. So now what I have is a duplex I purchased all cash. That's weird. Had enough money to do all the repairs, to pay for the repairs. So I'm $462,000 into this property. It's worth about $750 if I sold it. So this cost to sell. I've started depreciation this year on this because it's a duplex. It's only half occupied, so half of it will be depreciated. That's how that works. When I was in my fourplex, it was 75% depreciation, 25 while I was there. The IRS, when they go to do recapture, they take it all, like it was all done. So it doesn't benefit you at all not to take depreciation. And I see you, Levita. No, I didn't gloss over your question. I ignored it out of self-protection. Do you still consider? No, I don't. Yeah, it's hard to find. So maybe move out in the Pacific Northwest to where those remote workers are at. Look at different asset classes. Does your search include? One of my best deals was found because I've only bought small multifamily. I have not seen a single family house in Washington that would cash flow in over 10 years of investing, period. Just haven't. There might be some burrs or some rehabs that you can turn into money, but I haven't seen it. And I don't do that type of investing. I did it once now, and now I can officially say I don't do that type of investing. But my best purchase, I think, was a house with an ADU. I only found it because I had a single family house search going that was also included the colloquialisms of ADU, DADU, JADU, accessory dwelling unit, auxiliary dwelling unit, granny flat, mother-in-law house, like all the ways it could have been listed. Don't know which one it triggered on, but I found a house and a duplex on one property. So my triplex, which got me my best return. I think year one, I should do the math on a video for that. But I think that was way too boring. It was like 17% return year one. That was my best year one return. If you're doing, so I did in the beginning of this video, it started at a 12. By year three, it was an 18. So if I bought an 8 by year three, it'd probably be above that 10. Yeah, I'm not saying buy a bad deal and hope it gets better, but if you buy, and I want to be really careful here, I never want to insult my friends unless it's to their face. And since Zuber is not here and Matt are not here, I'm not going to insult them. But we are all three financially free and retired. You can hear us say, and you can hear the tone in our voice saying, I'm only going to buy great deals because we don't need more. But if we see a great deal, we're not stupid. We're only going to buy great deals. To get to the point where I only bought great deals, I didn't buy great deals. I bought good deals. I got base hits, right? You don't get RBIs unless you get someone on base. It's the only sports ball reference you get on my channel. And almost all of mine, I would consider just base hits. They were the biggest down payment I could save for the property I could afford that would cash flow that, yeah, year one did all right. But by year five, I'm trying to think if there's been a property I haven't thanked myself for buying. Never thanked myself for buying my single family house that I bought before I was an investor, but I have thanked myself for keeping it in the divorce. So yeah, TQ, I would adjust that percent as what you're finding for the yield and beat that. Manuel, howdy. I tried to hang out with Dion as much as I can, but lately it's been extremely hot and take naps after work. There you go. I'm here in Futureland. Naps are the nectar of life. You need them. They're very important. It's like everybody says, in retirement, I get so much more sleep. I get about 8 hours. It's just never in a row. The Yoder. Tonight at 7, I hang out with Dion, although I have missed a few this summer due to working 10 to 16 hours a day, which will pay off. And well, it's difficult to find cash flow properties after seeing that ADU guy. I'm focused on saving enough to build an ADU. I love it. Derek's brilliant. He just did a couple weeks ago a BiggerPockets Money episode with Mindy Jensen, and mine comes out tomorrow. I watched his. I take notes when Derek talks. The guy knows his stuff. Like, yeah, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to build an ADU. But when I go to refinish a kitchen, and I look at the hardware that he uses and it looks really high end, but he got a good price and where he has his links at and all the description of all his videos, that's where I go to get it. So, and then my chat moved, which I appreciate. I see somebody laughing, Dennis. I'll laugh when I get there. Um, Dennis, REI Life and Life Struggles. Well, I love the name. Are there any specific things you should be looking for in a lender business besides the numbers? For example, are there certain things that would help you decide on a lender that may be more expensive? Yes, that's a great question. I don't even know if she's still a lender, but the first person that I did my first three mortgages with, Katrina Johnson, who worked at Wells Fargo, worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That mattered more than rates or terms for those first three mortgages. I could, because I was brand new. I was like, hey, what would interest rates look like today? This is the type of property I'm looking at. What are things I'm not thinking of? She would answer a text on the weekend. I mean, yeah, I am not an idiot. I wouldn't text her at 10 o'clock on a Saturday all the time. But every now and then there'd be this, I got to know this thing now. I got to make a decision before Monday because that's, I think, when people are going to start working and make offers. I want to get this done this weekend. Availability. If I got the hint that they don't like to be talked to on a Saturday, great. I'm never going to talk to you on a Monday either. I'll find somebody else. So availability, when they work, that's important. The other thing is I did talk to one person, a lender, and I said, hey, here's how I do things. I just want to be transparent. I'm going to get a quote from you on your interest rates, the cost to buy down. I'm going to get a letter of pre-qualification on a letter on a property when I make offers, and I need it quick, right? And so I need access Saturday or Sunday because I make offers on the weekends or whenever. I need that within like an hour, and if you don't, I'm probably going to go to somebody else to get that much work done from them. So I'm just being transparent. If it's a weekend, I'll usually give you a couple of hours. I totally understand, but they make six figures to be a lender broker. So I'm not looking at somebody out there that's making minimum wage and trying to make them work hard on this. You're going to earn the money. You're going to earn the money. So I clearly communicated that's how I do it. And then I go, but if I go under contract, I shop rates. I then take your offer to three or four other lenders and I see what they offer. Can they beat your interest rate? Can they be a cheaper price to buy down the rate? If they can, I'll bring it back to you and give you the opportunity to keep my business. You don't need to beat their offer. You need to match it. So they need to beat your offer. I'm not going to leave you for somebody who matches your work. But if they can beat it, I'll bring it back to you and give you a chance to match it. If you can match it, I'll stay with you. If you can't match it, I'm going to go with them. And she said, this is not Katrina. She was amazing. This was somebody else. They said, I'm not comfortable with that. If I do the work to get you a letter of pre-qualification, you're going to close with me. I said, great. Last time we ever talk. And it has been. If you don't have confidence in your ability to match someone else's rate or to possibly beat it, and you don't like competition, you don't want to be my lender. I don't want you to be my lender. So yeah, availability, willingness to compare rates and terms to other people's products and to at least match them if they can beat them. That mattered to me as much as who has the best rate, because that rate changes all the time. Sometimes I've seen DSCR loan interest rates be better than conventional. Right? They can do all these things. So you're always shopping new lenders. But the thing with me is it's so this might shift a little with the NAR settlement. I don't know how things are still up in the air, but I tell my agents, I don't have a letter of exclusivity. Like I'm only going to work with you unless we're under contract, then I'll sign one to protect you. And we're not going to go under contract on a property without a letter of exclusivity. But if you want to set up an auto search, I don't do that. I have auto searches with several agents. Whoever sends me the best thing first that I like, that I contact to make an offer on, then I'll sign a letter with you. NAR and a lot of brokerages now just set up an auto search are requiring those. So don't think that my way is the right way. It's just how I was doing it. They might require a letter to even start it. But my agents knew I was working with other agents. You only have one reputation, and this is a finite business. Protect it by being transparent. Don't be weak. Don't let them walk all over you, but tell them what you're doing. I get searches from different agents. Whoever sends me the first thing, that's the one I want, gets the business. You're not the only person I'm dancing with, but whoever brings me the current dance is the one who gets the money. I hope that answered the question, Dennis. JNYC, howdy. Deciding where to live is so freaking hard, or maybe it's just an avoidance mechanism. Yes, that'll be a nice, I've got a lot of stuff I want to talk about in that video on Thursday. Oculus, Dion working 751 hours a year on REI. But not today. Michelle pointed out, I haven't done those in the videos. That's because I don't edit anymore. I'm trying to get more content, less work into editing, because I don't think people care about the edit stuff. And if they do, then they're not there to learn about real estate. That's not who I'm trying to reach. I'd rather have more impact on fewer people. Michelle, I call myself a Dion disciple. And then old guy REI, Frank has those shirts. Then Dion's REI disciples. And in his mind, because he's a giant biker guy, he was thinking like a motorcycle gang. And I was thinking like the tax loophole of having a cult. But motorcycle gang's better. Rob, what'd you miss? There was a Robin Williams reference that I don't think anyone got. Dennis, after I sent my question, I thought maybe I should go back and watch your lender video in the course. There you go. How to get the best rates. That's exactly, you just did. You just got it again. But you helped somebody else who's not in the course. Laura, same here. I'm focusing on saving to build an ADU in the back of my duplex. That is awesome. Financial firefighter, just had lunch today with Justin Canberra. Justin's awesome. He came out here and we did that too. We did the ferries over to Seattle, filmed some on the waterfront. If you ever see a video where we recorded it with people on the water, on anywhere, Vegas trip or waterfront, those days suck. I like the videos, but you approach, and this is weird. You approach 100 people to maybe get one to talk to you. That's not easy. I think Millennial Mike has the idea of putting out a table like real estate's easy, change my mind, or something like that, so that they approach us. Well, Mike's taller and handsomer, and people approach him anyway. Yes, Levita, they've got the Dion Disciple ones. There you go. Pix Performance. Howdy. I've heard Navy Federal doesn't require PMI. Anyone ever take advantage of this? Good question. There are lenders who don't. My first house was purchased non-VA, it was just a first-time homebuyer program, non-FHA, no mortgage insurance, zero down, walked away from the closing table with a check for $1,200. Different counties, different regions, different states have different programs all the time. You should be checking with lenders every couple of weeks to see what's available. You never know what's going to pop up. Delbert, howdy. And well, Michelle guy did a shirt, but it wasn't disciple. Can't remember what it was said. There you go. Thinking decades, not weekends. Exactly. Dummy, howdy. Any advice on co-signing? Would you co-sign for the debt or equity? I would with an LLC. I have an LLC rant video that says, here's all the reasons why you don't want to have an LLC. Partners is when you do, and you want everything in writing now while everybody's getting along. Because in 3 years, when there's a disagreement, that's not when you decide how to handle it. You want as many contingencies as possible, passing away, marriage, divorce, however that's going to impact this, all in writing and in the LLC. So yes, I would. Me and Millennial Mike were looking at offering on a property in Gary, Indiana, that ended up not doing it, but we would have done it even though we get along great. Still would have been an LLC. Thinking decades, not weekends. We get along great now. I'm not going to like his next 3 wives. I don't know. I might like him. I might not like him. And no, Mike, I didn't just limit you to 3. You still have options. So my advice would be get everything in writing now and have an attorney look at the paperwork, because let me see if I can articulate this in a way that makes sense. This is not a you problem. This is a me problem. My limited language skills. You can make an agreement with another adult. You're both adults. You're both over 18. You make an agreement with a contract. A court can throw the contract out if it is determined not to be fair. There's a legal way of phrasing it, whether it was signed under duress, it was signed under lack of knowledge. Like, they've got all these legal ways to tear up a document. So you want an attorney to look at it, to look for those obvious things that says a judge wouldn't recognize this because they're going to say that person signing didn't understand what they were reading. That's about as clear as I can put it into words. Like I said, that's a me problem, not a you problem. So you have somebody trained in legalese. Look at your docs. Manuel, you should write a book, call it Dionism. I don't think anybody would buy a Dionism. They might buy the Lazy Investor's Guide to Financial Freedom in 10 years or less. If I could find a shorter way to say that. There you go. Named hurricane after. Okay, that's when we were laughing. Yes. Do they alternate between male and female? See, I went to school in America. They don't teach us nothing. Laura, I am planning to sell my primary paid off to build the ADU for me to move in, and after a year, buy another duplex. The area in my duplex is less expensive. Location. That's the best thing about having these. So I talked about the very beginning of this video. What is a property paid me in 3 years, right? So here's what it paid me the first year, like 13,000 in cash flow profit, 19,000 year three. Then there's appreciation, there's principal pay down. Now I have options: HELOC, cash out, sale for a 1031, sell, pay the taxes, walk away. You don't have any of those options if you don't have the property. This is the hardest thing for a lot of people to understand. Some people are so poor, all they have is money. Somebody put water in my glass. Heck. Profit per door is a braggart's term. Yeah, I think it's a newer person's term, but yeah, so it can be both. There are people who brag on unit count, and then there are people who are just new and they go, okay, so how much do you make per door? It's a metric you can use, but it's not, doesn't tell me good or bad deal. I can go, when I retired, I was basically making a little over $1,000 a door. So it sounds like a metric that you would use, but it's not. I have no idea. Okay, math people. I've invested $320,000 over a decade to make $204,000 in profit the year that I retired. What's the yield there? That's how that would work. Since I've retired, I've also invested a bunch of money into this duplex, which I don't know if so if I do a cash out refinance, let's say I buy it for 4, I put 62,000 into it, so I'm 462,000 into this. It's worth 750. I use my VA loan. I do a $750,000 cash out. What's the yield? Right? Because it's an immediate pay. I don't know. Or I sell it. I live in it for 2 years. I gain probably enough to actually pay some taxes. There'd be some depreciation recaptured because half of this place is going to be depreciated for those 2 years. But I have the IRS 121 rule up to $250,000 in write-offs because I'm smart. I mean, single. Catch it twice now. 500,000 if you're married. You could do this, make all that profit, not pay any taxes. Those options, like Laura's, exist because you made moves in the past that gave you assets to move around to give you options. Oh, they're cooking the crab. I was like, my drink doesn't make my mouth water. What's that? A friend named Jacques, who's actually a sous chef at, where does he work? Oh, he's going to kill me if I don't know it. The owner of the place actually won an episode of Chopped. It's not crickets. It's somewhere else. It's coming over to cook. That's what happens when you say, hey, I got about 7 buckets, legally obtained, of course, whatever the maximum is, because it's on my property, of the crabs. So that's what's for dinner, Frank. Or Wealth Building Journey. You are correct. They used to be named female names only, and it created a storm. Oh, I love it. That's a dividend level dad joke, Laura. Good job. That's awesome. Ha. JNYC, how do people put aside their forever home when they're starting out? I think I'm stuck with my ideal homestead with land in my head, and it affects how I see houses. I just need to man up. Good point. And that's going to literally a video Thursday. I mean, there's going to be several hard decisions that you have to make when you retire, right? Like, how do you fund it? What lifestyle do you want? Where, as in region, country, state, all these things that you have to decide. But then what is your version of a forever home? I would have thought farmland, all that stuff, great too. But do you plan on traveling? How are you going to take care of all the animals when you're not in the country? And when you reach financial freedom, that stuff becomes an option. So I chose to house hack in retirement, not because of the financial gain. Like I'd make more money if I moved out and rented this place out, but because there's somebody living on the property when I'm out of the country. Somebody, and there was a cat here when I moved in, they would be able to take care of the cat. They can pull in an Amazon package if I need to. They can tell me if there's a leak, a freeze, a fire, or whatever. There you go. Although I'm pretty sure with the view that I've got here, it's going to be really easy to reach out to my friends and say, hey, I'm leaving for 5 months. You want a house sit? Michelle, there you go, Frank. That's how you and Cynthia get your first Pacific Northwest winter. You guys just come and house sit while I'm in Thailand. There's enough room for two. Don't know if there's enough room for three. I don't know. What do you think about that? Michelle, Frank, I'm thinking my memory is worse than Dion says history. I think so. I don't know. Riley Oak. Howdy, Riley. How does your yield expectation differ if you're using low down payment and making it your primary? My yield calculation is a lot higher because of my low down. So I do two things when I run the numbers on a house hack. Okay, I've got a video on how to run the numbers on house hack. And in that, I talk about the two things that I do when I run the numbers. And did it do another stupid commercial? Or am I just off iron right now? What the heck? My video's gone. Why is it that? Let me know in the chat if I'm still here because it went away on my phone. It's never done that before. Huh. Let me scroll down to the bottom of the chat. Let me see where I'm at. Okay. Am I still here? Let me know. Cody Davis for the live. Okay, good. All right. This has gone on my phone and won't come back. So I have to look at the chat here now. I see I missed a super chat or two. See, Adam Calhoun. Thanks all. Learn on Tuesday nights. I appreciate that. See if I'm missing a question. 20th super chat on a live stream. Awesome. Cody Davis for the live. Better late than never. Good to see you here, Cody. I've talked about you a couple of times earlier. So when you were, if you were here earlier and you heard me talking about the guy, 30 rentals before he was 21, well, that was Cody. Riley Oak, how does your yield expectation differ if you're okay? So two things I do when I'm house hacking. I'm sorry that I messed up the Emperor's Groove because the squirrel ran off with it that way. When my phone quit doing this, that's really weird. It's never done that before, and now it won't go to it. First thing is I run as though I did a 20% down or a 25% down, whatever down payment I'm looking at all of the properties. So if I'm looking at rentals and a house hack, I try to run the down payment as the same because I'm not trying to figure out what my cash flow is going to be at this point. I'm trying to figure out comparing apples to apples as similar as possible, which one has the best yield. Second thing is I take me living there out of the equation. How would this cash flow if I didn't live there and the unit was rented? That's how I calculate my yield. When I live there, I'm probably going to be paying to live there like I did in my duplex, or I'll be making less when I live there like I did in my fourplex. The main reason is you point out my yield calculates a lot higher because of my low down payment. My fear is if you put a zero down owner occupied first time homebuyer program where you don't even have to put anything out of pocket, VA loan or one of those other options that pops up out there every now and then. Zero down means make $1 a year. It's an infinite return. That's not good. It's not worth owning a rental and not taking all the risk for $1. I mean, there might be other factors, but looking at just math, that's not a good deal. But you don't know that unless you thought, okay, if I purchase this with 20 or 25% down, what does that dollar a year now look like? And you can know that would be a bad deal. CrossFit workouts are all named female names too. Nice. Do you know how you can always tell when there is a vegan, someone in the CrossFit, or a Marine in the room? They tell you. I left for a while, but I'm back. All-nighter. Nice. Business call helping a lady out with getting harassed by code complaints. Oh, my favorite. Or rebuilding her deck, but also holding the county accountable for the same at the same time. Nice. Good handyman is worth their weight in gold. Yes, looking at 2020, saying that was the golden age of real estate too. Michelle, JNYC, you must think buy box and stick to it. Your forever home will be there when you are ready. Exactly. The Briley, curious how you deliver your offers. If you're making multiple disrespectful offers, does your agent reach out to each beforehand to just send them, or is there any particular verbiage you have them use? Good question. So the multiple offers I was making a lot more when I was doing speed, right? So for 10 years, I invested with speed. Speed was your best friend. I wanted to get my offer in to get on the seller's radar. Often I was outbid by somebody who had a higher offer or a more attractive offer with other things. But mine was already in their mind. And then when they take the other offer, because people would usually make a high offer and then beat them up in negotiations, I would send a follow-up email saying, my agent would send. So let me break this down how it actually looks. This is the concept, and then I'll tell you the nuance. My offer still stands in case that one falls through, so that when they start being too aggressive with their negotiations, they go, okay, we don't want it. We're going to go back to me. I wouldn't negotiate too much, but I got the deal usually at list price or a little below because I was making fast offers. In the last couple of years, what's worked better is watching days on market, looking for things that sit longer, and then making an offer. So finding the things that sit longer, and then explaining to my agent, look, this one's been on 80 days or 140 days. We're going to make an offer at 80% or 75% of their list. Most times, I just tell the agent, make the offer. Because if you send an email that says, we're thinking of making an offer, do you think they would take less? You give time for that agent and owner to have a communication to say, here's the lie and manipulation we're going to use with all the other offers we've got on standby. I want an actual docu-signed offer submitted at my amount, but justify it with how many days it's been on market, what the comps are, and what the reason it's still on the market is. Does it need work? So I looked at two. One needed a bunch of work. It's my burr. I ended up with it. The other one, the owner had re-signed new leases lower than area average rents for a year. So there was barriers to that. I had worked out the math on what numbers made sense to me to make the offers, how to make the offers. So it's actual offers through the agent. And then the follow-up is an email from the agent saying, right, in the beginning when it was speed, offer still stands. Know your numbers, know how high you'll go. And I stopped there, right? I said, I'll take 390 for the other one. I don't budge. I mean, yes, if they came back and they said, okay, we'll take 402, I probably would have done it. Right? A couple $1,000s, not going to blow a deal. But when they came back it was at 5 and I say 4 and they say 477 and I say 4 and they say 444 and I say 4 and they say 422 and I say 4 and then they say, okay, fine, we'll take 4. That was my number. It didn't make sense at 405. So if you offer 350, but I know I'd go to 4, then that back and forth negotiation, it's not going to go as well as if you just pick a number, send an offer, ignore it, don't think of that property again. Answer every time they come back. That's the amount they offer. That's how I work. Go on to the next one. That my agent was happy with, because then the agent can literally go, send me an email. Dion, they came back and they said 444. I've sent an email saying no 4. Like he knew that was it. Hope that helps. Slam the like button. Thank you, Freedom Works. Laura, JMC. It's not easy to put aside or sell your primary house. My heart wants to keep it. My brain tells me to sell it, build the ADU. It's hard to give up the view, tax, home. Yeah. Emmanuel, howdy. Will you ever focus on paying off the mortgages early, or will you let them all ride out for the full life of the loans? This is a great question, and everyone's situation is different. So even if I said, here's what I would do every time, here's my advice, I don't know your situation. And that's not a legal protection, me saying, you can't sue me because I'm not giving legal advice. This is me saying, you need to know your situation. If you reach financial freedom and you want the stability and you don't want more growth, sure, pay off the debt. It's not going to hurt you. It's going to cost you millions. I paid off one mortgage, lost over $1 million easily. I do not want paid off properties. This is my situation, maybe not yours. I want the asset protection that comes from having leverage. I want levered depreciation. I want good debt. I worked really hard to get into it. I'm definitely not going to focus on getting rid of it. Low interest rate, fixed rate debt. If I wouldn't do it, but if I had adjustable rate debt, I'd probably focus on paying that down. If I had super high interest rate debt, like above 10%, I might focus on paying that down, depending on the return on the property. Because you could be paying 50% interest on a loan and still make money, right? That what you pay in interest is not correlated to the yield or the cash on cash return. It's part of the metric, part of the math that gets you that number. But I don't care what the interest rate is as long as my yield is good. So for some people, it might make sense to pay off your mortgages. For me, it does not. I actually might put a mortgage on this place that I purchased all cash. I'm already financially free. The cash flow, more free is not more free. Uh, it's an unprotected asset. Like if I have a problem with the insurance here, it's me against the insurance. If I have a problem at a house where it's me, the insurance, and the bank, it's me and the bank against the insurance. And no, your bank's never going to call you and go, oh, let's send an attorney to your insurance. No, your insurance company knows they're dealing with a lender and they're held to a higher standard than if it's just dealing with you. There's a list of reasons why I like having a mortgage. I have a couple of properties without a mortgage, kind of like a piggy bank or a savings, I guess, but I definitely don't want to pay off any good debt that I created. So let's look at this. You have 10 properties. You have $1 million. So you have 10 properties and you have $1 million. You have $1 million in debt on the properties. You can take the $1 million and pay it off. You can be debt free, 10 properties, like my brother, 10 paid off properties, retire, be fine. Or you have 10 properties and $1 million, and then you take the $1 million and you buy 10 properties with $100,000 down on each one. So now you have 20 properties, 10 new depreciation schedules. You're now appreciating $2 million if the value of the properties was the same as the debt instead of $1 million. All of the benefits come from having more good debt. There is no benefit to paying off good debt unless you want that sleep well at night account. To an extent, having some paid off might be fine, but having a fully paid off portfolio, it's not my thing. Let's say, let me see if the math on this works right now. My properties are worth a little over $6 million. I have $1.8 million in debt. I could focus in the next few years, pay off the 1.8, or I could sell one, pay it off, or whatever. And then let's say I sell all the properties and walk away with money. I'd probably have around $3 million. If I paid off all the debt and then sold all the properties, I'd probably still have about $3 million. It's not like it makes you more money to have it paid off because you can have a positive net worth while you're in debt. Right. And so if you invest in real estate, you get this, and it sounds dumb to even hear it. But if you're new to real estate, I hit $1 million in debt and $1 million in net worth on the same day. The debt is what gave me the net worth. With the debt, I was able to buy enough real estate to where, had I sold all the real estate, paid the taxes, paid the real estate fees at that point in time, which was January 6, 2020, I would have walked away with $1 million. Now it's a little over $3 million because thank you, inflation. So it's a great question, and it's a good kind of hypothetical, but how hard are you going to work to create the good debt? Once you create the good debt and you realize the cash flow exists because of the debt, you don't have to pay taxes because of the levered depreciation, not the interest that you're writing off. You never get a loan for the interest as a tax write-off. You take the tax write-off when you have interest on a loan, but you don't let the tax tail wag the dog. You take the levered depreciation. Right? Let's say you have $100,000 and I have $100,000. So Emmanuel, I just gave you $100,000. You go and you buy a house for $100,000. You own it free and clear. Now you start making rent. You can depreciate like whatever the buildings are worth of that $100,000 property. I take the $100,000 and I buy a $400,000 duplex. I put 20% down, 25% down. I now depreciate of a $400,000 property, however much the buildings are worth, that amount of depreciation. It's levered depreciation. I did not spend or invest $350,000, but I get to depreciate that. The $100,000 was the same for both of us. Mine has more benefits. A paid off property has zero benefits for you. Less asset protection. You still have the same expenses of taxes and insurance and upkeep, but you only own what you've invested. I like owning what the bank has invested with me. Don't over lever. Angel R, I'm only making 640 profit on my last deal. But it's your last deal, which means it's your most recent, right? That's year one. Now compare it to year three. What's it going to look like in 2028, 2032? right? That's why I always careful, never compare year 10 or 12 to year one. Lynn, howdy. I hope you're still here and welcome to my channel. Do you still invest in stocks? If I owned one stock or had one penny in a retirement account, I'd still have to work. I don't have a problem with stocks. I don't have a problem with crypto. I don't have a problem with owning businesses. I don't have a problem with real estate. I don't have a problem with all the different ways to invest in any one of those. Pick an asset class that you love, that you are emotionally excited about, because you're more likely to stick to a plan when you're emotionally invested in it. Master it. Diversification is the death of growth. When people say you diversify, you do once you're wealthy. You focus to become wealthy. If you invest in stocks and retirement account and HSA and crypto and a business, side hustle, your W-2, your degree, your house you live in, you are the middle class. You will work until you're 65 at a minimum and have a very poor retirement. If you pick stocks and you watch Joe Kuhn and Azul and you learn the buckets method and you focus on how do I make as much money as I can, spend as little, save and invest the difference to get this buckets method going, take 20 to 30 years to have compound interest do its thing, you'll be able to retire before 65. You'll have a lot more money because you focused on stocks. If you did that and invest in rentals, it'll blow up in your face. People don't have the bandwidth to take many investing strategies. Now, Joe has retired. He could go and start a side hustle. He could go and buy rentals. He could diversify to protect his wealth. I am 100% in real estate. I diversify in two specific ways. I reached financial freedom. I've been retired over 2 years now. I hit the 2-year mark in July. I have to tell you, it doesn't suck. And I'm 100% in real estate. If somebody gave me a stock, I'd sell it to put it to work in real estate. I think if my net worth right now, which passed a little over 3 million, if it passed 10 million, I'd probably buy some stocks. I'd probably buy some crypto, right? Like 1 to 5% of my net worth might go into those other asset classes. You diversify to protect wealth. You cannot diversify to make wealth. You are severely limiting the potential growth you would have in any one asset class that you could master. So it's a great question. I don't invest in stocks, never did. I was stupid, maxed out a retirement account. I hate retirement accounts. I'll use terms like hate. I use the R word too. So if you don't like that, it might be the wrong channel for some people out there. But I thought there was tax benefits. I thought, oh, the government will lower taxes in the future. Now we'll retire broke. Dumbest thing I've ever said. I will retire broke. Taxes will be less in the future. 3 people benefit from your retirement accounts, and none of them are you. The government does because taxes are going to be more in the future. Your employer does because it's a recruitment and retention program, and the account managers make money whether you make money or lose money. So I dropped to the match. Math told me do the match, get the match at least. That makes sense. I hated it. Right. 2020 came around, gave me the opportunity to empty it out and buy a triplex. Then when I retired the next year, 2023, when I didn't have W-2 income at all, I emptied out what was left in the retirement account because I don't care about paying taxes on it and the penalty. Just give me my money. It's mine. Stop with this stupid paywall. That triplex pays me every month. The amount of money that I put in has over quadrupled since I did that. Yeah. Whereas my retirement account went down 24% in the last 4 years, just before I emptied it out. Thank you guys for the super chats. I appreciate it. Michael Diaz, howdy. 204K divided by 320, basically is 64%. Yeah, so, and then it was like 240 the next year. And remember, cost to acquire never changes. Now, the 320,000 was from my earned income. I also invested about $300,000 in cash flow from the rental. So it's like a $620,000 invested, but only 320 from me. Thank you, Cody. Cody Davis, Business Adventures. I like it. Old guy RAI. When do we start? Nice. Laura, thanks. Oh, thank you. I hope my information is helping. Dennis, you're still here. Thank you. This is where you guys saw me. That was good. My phone just went stupid. R word almost came out. Deconstructing dreams. Late but here, we'll catch most of it in slight future land. Nice. Awesome. Luke. Howdy, Luke. What are your thoughts on joining the Air Force? Don't laugh, and not doing real estate full time. So I did 6 years in the Marines, probably would have done 20. I had a few things that changed my career outside of my control. One of them was the Marine Corps downsizing. The other was taking 2 years to recover from getting the Enemy Marksmanship Award, which you know what that is if you're a veteran. Um, I I want to be pro-military, but I want to be transparent at the same time. So as a Marine, as people I know who are in the Army and the Navy and the Air Force, Air Force is smarter. So if you've got the brains for it, go for it. But here's what the military does. The military doesn't make you better. The military amplifies you. If you go in a potato, you're going to come out a soup sandwich. If you go in and you put in effort, you could become an amazing person. So there are definitely benefits to joining the military. I would recommend it to most people. So I've got a nephew in the Air Force. He's actually stationed in, I think, Idaho. He's got his first duplex, maybe his second property. He's doing great. And I think being in the military is a great way to get started in real estate. Zuber from One Rental at a Time recently had somebody on the podcast who had purchased a property at almost every duty station she had gone to. So she was just getting out of the military. She already had 5 to 10 rentals. I need to actually watch the episode to get more detail. But if you're 18 and you join the military, right, so you have the options that come from that. You serve the number of years to get the GI Bill, which can then be used for college or trade school. We had a ton of people come through and get a CDL school, start a $120,000 a year local driving job because they went to the military to get the CDL paid for. There's welding certificates. There's all these things that you could do. Maybe pick an MOS that you can actually use when you get out. I went to the Marine recruiter and said, I want to blow stuff up. So I became a tow gunner, and there's not a lot of work for that. There's like 2 avalanche control jobs in the whole state that I live in. So it was law enforcement, truck driving. Those were my options when I got out. So if you could pick a field that maybe has a tie into a better job, because so I love how you said, and not doing real estate full time. So I don't think to be a real estate investor, I don't think you should be a real estate agent. That's not how it works. There's a long list of reasons why I'm not an agent. One of the reasons I'm successful is because I'm not an agent. However, full-time is how you ended it. If you go in the military and you do a couple of years and you get that steady income and that new thing and you work on your credit score and you save a down payment while all your friends are going out in the military on the weekends and blowing every dime on partying, because that's what you do at that age. We all do it. But in the first 4 to 6 years of your service, you buy a house or a duplex at some duty station. You live in it for a little bit. You get a property manager when you move to the next duty station. So maybe you don't make a lot of money. It cash flows, it covers its expenses, but you don't need to make a lot of money. You have a steady job. You go in the military every 2 to 4, 6 years, you change duty stations. Every time you're stationed anywhere near the US, buy another rental, you live in it because you get the owner occupied low down payment. You can use your VA loan more than once. You can use it before you get out, right? It's not that you've gotten out of the military, it's that you were in the military long enough to qualify for it. So you could rack up several rentals, because here's what happens to a lot of people in the military. This is actually very common. They get to the 15 to 17 year mark. Now, there's this thing called Soldier for Life where they're trying to change this because they realized people were on how they were getting screwed over. So it's going to, in the future, it's going to be set up to 4, 8, 12 years gets you something. But for the dinosaurs, when we were in, you could be in 19 years and 300 days and get out and you get 0. You hit 20 years, you got a pension, and it went up every year after that. You get a little bit more of a pension. So at 15 to 17 years, people were getting kicked out. Oh, we're sorry, you don't hit our height weight measurements anymore, or your MOS is downsizing. You have to take this terrible duty station with this reduction in rank or this limit in rank, or you haven't hit rank in an amount of time, so we're kicking you out. No pension, 17 years gone, never bought one rental, doesn't own anything, has maybe $50,000 in their TSP. Screwed. Professional term that covers what that person's going through. But the person is in 15 years and gets kicked out, but bought 4 or 5 rentals and has, because you don't just buy 4 or 5 rentals and they all make $500. You bought one and then 10 years went by You had a chance to refinance, get a better interest rate. You had a chance for rent increases. So you've had one property for 10-ish years. You had one for 8, one for 5. You get out, you've had 3 or 4 properties, but some of them longer, and you have $4,000 to $10,000 a month coming in that you now get to go, so what do I want to be now that I'm grown up? And you get out of the military. So I think the Air Force is great. I think all of the branches have their benefits. It was a very specific reason why I chose the Marines. I don't know if I've ever said this in a video before. I like the Air Force. You guys got good food, man. But I was getting out of high school. Fiance had just passed away to a drunk driver, and I was like, okay, I'm joining the military, got to get out of here, whatever the reason is. They also have housing, and I kind of grew up moving from house to house that we didn't own or rent. So there was like the housing aspect. It's easier than tree work to join the military. Tree work, that's one of the harder things I've ever done. And this is how simple, how stupid my decision to join the Marine Corps was. You can't be an Army. You can't be a Navy. The Navy also has bell bottoms, so I was out. And you can't be an Air Force, but you are a Marine. It was literally a stupid thought, and I was like, oh, I can be one of those. I can't be one of the. A life trajectory determined by grammar. So I don't know you. I think since you're watching content on how to have a better financial future, you're probably more squared away than most of the people you know. So Air Force might be one of those things that amplifies you and makes you a better person. But that would be cool. All-nighter hider. Luke, when I was 18, I thought 4 years for it's forever. It's not. So a 4-year commitment may not derail you if it turns out to be a bad decision. Yeah, I've tried to say that without being an ageist. There's a lot of I have a problem with saying this generation anything. Blame the boomers, disrespect the Gen Z, whatever it is. You can't, right? Let's say you go, okay, this generation sucks, and then you meet Cody Davis, and you're like, well, hang on, wait. There are outliers. You can't do that. But you can say, when you're 18, you haven't had decades go by to understand how fast the decades go by. You're living in wait. You're going, I can't cross the street without parental supervision. I can't buy a shotgun until I'm 16 or get a license when you're 16. That's maybe more common to most normal people. You can't vote till you're 18. You can't drink till you're 21. You can, depending on the state you're living in, you've got all these weird milestones you're coming up on. After 21, you're like, I can rent a car at 25. I might get better insurance. And then you're 72. And you're like, what happened? So all nighter, you're right. It feels like forever when you're that age. The commitment, and when you do the commitment at that age, it's going to feel like forever. But when I was 40, I joined the Marines and I thought this is forever, right? When I was 40 and I thought, okay, if I buy a duplex every 2 years and in 10 years I'll have 5. With 5, I could basically be financially stable. Didn't know about the income snowball, and that at 5 years it would speed up, and 5 would become 8. That was actually 18 rentals. Like it spiraled faster. At 40, I was like, yeah, that decade's going to happen. It's that simple. It's going to happen no matter what. At 18, planning for a decade is nuts. Like, who does that? The person who does that has the ability to retire in their 30s and have 60 years of freedom versus the person who starts at 40, retired at 52. I might have 20 years of active retirement. That'd be great to have 20. I definitely don't have 60, depending on what they do with those jellyfish genes. The chair force. Yeah, there's a lot of jokes, and we all pick on each other. Kind of like the Marines is just a department of the Navy. It's the men's department, but it's just a department of the Navy. Yep, Luke, you're gonna see that a lot, but you're gonna get the best equipment, the best food. Like, and the cool thing is so the Air Force is a lot smaller than the Army. The Marines is a lot smaller than the Army too, right? So the Army has SFL TAP, Soldier for Life. Tons of resources for when you get out. The Air Force doesn't. It's kind of like the Marines. They go, set the ball down, the game's over now, and you're out, and we can't care about you anymore because we don't have the resources to. We got to take care of our active duty service members. But most Air Force bases are now Joint Base Lewis McChord, Joint Base Name Your Place. And those Joint Base Air Force service members have access to the Army's resources on getting out. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. Both building journey, Dion and I are sea service brethren, Navy and Marine Corps. There you go. Knew the Navy joke was coming too. So we always make jokes about the chair force. Yep. Jealous jokes, though. We'll send you to many different cities, right? As the Army does, and you can buy wherever you are. That is so true. Here we go. Also telling him he should get married and then all is done. Look at that, we got blocked. No, nobody's telling you to get married. Do you actually hate somebody enough to get the government involved? Donnie, have I co-signed or borrowed? I was going to with Millennial Mike, and I purchased a house once while I was stupid. I mean, married. But no, I haven't. I don't do partnerships. I probably would on the right deal. I was going to with Millennial Mike. But I would have put an LLC in place, get everything in writing now. 1 million in debt and 1 million in net worth means 2 million in assets at the time. $2.6 million in assets because I had a cost to sell, depreciation recaptured, cost, possible taxes to give me the 1 million in net worth, right? That's why at the beginning of this, I wanted, it could be 10 minutes to say how much a rental made. No, I wanted to explain that this is how many mistakes are made when people talk net worth. You can't just assets minus liabilities, right? That's the math. But you have a tax obligation because you're not 1031ing if it's assets minus liabilities. You have the cost of selling depending on which asset class you have. So yeah, it was like 2.6 when I purchased the fourplex. It's good. Willie, howdy. I have $100,000 saved and cash flowing $3,000 a month after all expenses, having a hard time finding any deals. Also have about 600,000 in equity. Looking for in case there's a question there that I missed. I don't. I'll just give you random thought on you have 100,000 sitting there, 600,000 in equity. This will also tell me how old you are. From the Emperor's New Groove. When it comes to equity, here's my theory. Here's my thesis, my theology. No touchy. You don't have $600,000 in equity. You have the ability to add debt to an existing asset or sell an existing asset. Are there creative strategies that you can use a HELOC, cash out refinance, or second mortgage or 1031 for? Yes, but that's not how I generally would suggest doing this. It's a long time. It's a decade, right? Real estate is a get rich quick scheme. You just have to understand 10 years is quick. That's the trick. That 100,000, how can you deploy it? Do a review, a SWOT, strength and weakness analysis test of your assets test, of your portfolio, and make sure you don't have any alligators or bad properties that are too much tenant turnover or bigger headaches or other reasons why you want to sell them. Make you feel bad when you go there. Whatever it is, you can sell properties. I just never have. And figure out the best use of that capital. Maybe you would 1031 if you sell it. Michelle did. It's doing great. Where can you deploy the $100,000 to create more cash flow? What are you doing for work? Plus the 3,000, plus the whatever the 100,000 does for the next 6 months to a year to find the next deal in 2 years, in 4 years, whatever it takes. And then I don't know how far you into the journey, 3,000 a month in cash flow seems like a pretty decent amount. So you've been doing this a minute. You're not brand new. But you get that cash flow to your freedom number in 5 to 10 years. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens over a decade. The equity thing, I still never touched it. And I know Matt, the lumberjack landlord, cringes every time I do it at the actual correct use of the word. And it's called dead equity. It's not working. It's not performing. But it's making me to where I never have to work again. Someday, it's entirely possible. I sell all my properties, pay the taxes, just pay the depreciation recapture, and walk away with several $1,000,000 that I don't know, buy dividend stocks or whatever happens to crypto in the future and just live off of that. I am not trying to create generational wealth. I tell my kids all the time, you ain't getting crap. I'm 80. That 16, no, not 16. That 21-year-old I'm marrying when I'm 80 hasn't even probably been born yet, have they? 54? No, they haven't been born yet. They're going to get everything because I don't want to take away my kids' desire to grow their own stuff, even though they'll probably get a couple million each because I'm not getting married again. My cup is not that big. Except I might marry Millennium Mike for the tax run. And uh, Freedom Works. I know how to get Dion Ben out of ship. Just mentioned stocks. For me, yes, but look at Joe Kuhn, right? Invests in stocks for 30 years, gets to do whatever he wants, travels all the time. He's got his buckets method. He's as financially free or more than I am, right? He retired at 54. He's been retired for like 6 years now. So he's had 6 years of retirement. I've only had two. Michelle's right. You want to freak me out, it's LLC. Yep, that's why I'm on Coach Carson's video in the morning, which I hope should have reminders set up for. I better check. We could also tell him he should get married. There you go. That's where that came from. I thought we were talking about Luke there for a second. It was like, why not giving him horrible advice like that? And yes, Chester, but not often talked about on YouTube because I want people to watch it because of what I do with real estate. All-nighter hider. I happen to know Mike Carr Sr., one of the few civilians licensed to own a howitzer for avalanche control. Nice. That's awesome. I hear demons. There's been kids walking by. Their family owns something like 1/3 of all the Waugh coastline. Crazy loaded. I bet. Wake up money. The money I make just by waking up, military pension and disability. There you go. Horizontal money comes in even if you're laying down. Can't beat the class uniform. There you go. Wealth Building Junior. I am disappointment in my grammar. Class A. Just blues. There's no. Is it too much of an overshare? So I worked in an office, and I'm not going to say that women are shallow. I'm just going to say that the women I worked with were shallow. They liked the guys who showed up at the CDL school based on the truck they drove. There's something different between men and women. Most of the guys I know that we're looking for feminine qualities. A lot of the women I've worked with were looking for the dress blues, the stupid, ridiculous pickup truck. And if those girls are watching this, because they do watch my content sometimes, I didn't know who you were. I heard you talking through the office. It was not that big a place. I saw you all run to the window when the trucks would pull up. Muscles are required, intelligence not. Yeah, exactly. I have my crayons ready to eat. If you're going to be a Marine, might as well go all the way. Janitor on fire. Yes, I was in the Army. Okay. And then my chat moved. I was in the Army, but I always thought the Class A Marine uniform was top notch. There you go. Space Force would look great as an original Star Trek, but just a few drop codes there. And so the Air Force, what do you think of Space Force? I mean, that's a whole weird future that's opening up right now. Joint Base Andrews. There you go. Luke, there you go. Thank you. JMC, howdy. Funny Ash, Luke. JMC, do you think the math will math in the future when price to rent ratio will be even further apart? Cash flow will be harder, right? Nope. Market will shift. Rents have gone up consistently. Google the chart. Let's play silly things because we're late in the video. Actually, we are going to be ending this pretty soon. So let me, if I stop this, I don't want to do that. I will welcome one and all, even the haters, to the Zoom. Well, I just Google a couple of things here and we wrap this video up. Share my screen. And I will go over here and type in, what was I talking about? This is rents since 1940. My screen locked up. There's asking rents from 1980. Yes, home prices and home values are going up faster, but look at how Section 8 looks at the last 7 years, right? So Section 8 takes the last 7 years of data. They don't look at the most recent two, and they take these 5 years. Look how much rents went up in 2021 to 22. That year is starting to be factored into Section 8 now. So when Section 8 goes up now, we're not changing the value of the problem at all. There we go. I got you, Chester. It'll inchworm. You'll have some years where you're like, oh, I'm not making a lot of money. It's kind of flatlined, and then the rents will spike up. You'll have chances to refinance in the future. You are experiencing principal pay down. You can do a recast of your mortgage in 5 to 10 years. So no, I don't see the demand on rentals going down. It's harder to buy a house. What does that do? Makes more renters. When there's more renters, what does that do to rents? Let me go back to the here so I can see the chat. Laura, yes, I can't wait for the interview tomorrow with Coach. Pointed out I am here after investing less than 10,000 25 years ago. The investment has financed all of my properties. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's amazing how that works. Michelle, I did a 1031, sold my rental because I had a 72% equity on it, but rents didn't support pulling the HELOC for equity. There you go. Yep. That's the thing is you have those options. I think they asked this in a BiggerPockets interview with who were they talking about? I think it was Meet Kevin. He was on BiggerPockets, and they were talking about who would you rather be? $20 million in real estate with $20 million in debt, or zero debt, zero real estate. Because you go forward 1 year, real estate appreciates on average 5% a year. The $20 million person only has $20 million in debt, even if they didn't pay off a penny. And they've gained 5% of $20 million, where the zero debt, zero property person has zero options. I appreciate everybody hanging out with us here. Next Tuesday, there will be a members only live stream at 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock Pacific. So the live stream will go from 4 to 6:30, and then at 6 we'll hang out. I think Matt the Lumberjack Landlord is still doing his lives on Thursday. Chester, do you know what time he does them? Thursday
I
evening?
believe I want to say 2100 local, so 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern.
There you go. So I hope to see everybody there. I try to be there for all of those. I'll be in the comments with you guys, making the comments that make the chat come to life. So they are appreciated. Don't ever hesitate. So here on YouTube, so in Zoom, we could talk about all the things that get us sued. Have an evening full of marvelous. And we are off of YouTube. I'm surprised only 4 of us